Hello, friends. Did you know that nearly 80% of those who watch my videos aren't subscribed? If you enjoy the content, I'd truly appreciate it if you hit that subscribe button. It helps a lot. Also, don't forget to leave a like and share your thoughts in the comments. Your interaction not only supports the channel's growth, but also helps these stories reach more people. Thank you all for being here. By the way, where are you watching from? Let me know in the comments. I climbed into the driver's seat and killed the engine, leaving only the low hum of the radio static and the ticking of the clock. 12:17 a.m. My name's Mark Salisbury, deputy with the Redwood County Sheriff's Office, and I've learned over the years that silence can be just as loud as gunfire. Out here, silence carries your own breathing back at you, amplified against sweat-slicked earplugs and rushing rain. I stepped out into a chill that cut through my jacket, the gravel under my boots cracking like brittle bones. That old Whitaker barn sat 50 yards ahead, its sagging roof barely visible under the yellow wash of my headlights. The call had been simple: silent alarm. No panic code, no frantic dispatcher voice, just barn alarm tripped, no response. A routine check except for the weather. Cold rain driving at my collar, wind pushing against me like a warning. My breath steamed in front of my face as I hefted the flashlight in one hand and let the other rest on my holster. Every drop of rain pelted the barn siding with a hollow thud, and I felt the barn shudder as if it were breathing. Steps closer, and I heard it. A soft scrape, like fingernails drawn along old boards. I stopped and held my breath. The radio crackled. "Deputy Salisbury, you copy?" It was dispatch, routine tone with just a hint of amateur concern. "Copy," I whispered. "Approaching Whitaker barn, no visual yet, rain's heavy." 10-4, dispatch said. "No units available, stay safe." "Stay safe," they said. A chuckle caught in my throat. Safe out here meant keeping the badge on your jacket and the radio on low. I wrapped the flashlight against the barn door. Thick wood, weathered and rotted at the bottom, groaned under my knock. My hand curled around the cool metal of the door handle, and I pushed. The hinges squealed, and water dripped through gaps overhead, landing in small puddles on the dirt floor. Inside, the smell was 2 parts mildew to 1 part decay. Hay bales stacked against the far wall dripped soggy straw, water pooling at their base. I swept the beam across the space. Broken fencing, rusted tools, nothing moving except the puddles spreading under flickering roof leaks. A pair of old tires lay half buried in mud. I peered deeper. My flashlight caught a disturbance behind a tattered tarp. Footprints. Fresh, wide, and leading toward a side stall. The beam danced over splintered wood as I followed the tracks, each step sinking into wet soil beneath the barn's concrete floor. Gravel sprinkled underfoot, a sound that felt too loud in the hush. I saw him before I saw the barn worker, dark shape slumped by the rail, one arm flung out like he'd collapsed mid-step. I dropped to one knee beside him. He was soaked to the bone, shirt plastered to his skin, cheeks sunk and pale as moonlight. His eyes fluttered open when I knelt down. He tried to speak, lips cracked. He croaked, then gasped and coughed on thick red-tinged saliva. Horror bloomed in my chest. "Who?" asked, tilting his head up. His eyelids fluttered again, but he didn't answer. I radioed coordinates. "Dispatch, I have an injured civilian. Possible hypothermia. I need medical." Then I pressed my forehead against his shoulder, listening to rattling breaths, rain dripping onto my jacket from a hole above. A door slammed in the back of the barn. A deliberate, heavy thunk that echoed like a warning. I tensed, flashlight sweeping in that direction. My breath caught where the light touched black leather boots, standing still against the damp straw. I rose slowly, knees cracking under me, heart thumping so loud I thought it might drown out the barn door creak. A man stepped forward, hands empty, but fingers curled as if around a weapon. My feet felt rooted to the mud as he approached, the beam of my light tracing a path across his face. High cheekbones, sunken eyes that glinted with wariness. He tilted his head, watching me like a predator studies its prey. A gust of wind rattled the barn's sideboards, and rain streamed through a gap overhead, tracing rivulets down my flashlight lens. I wiped it against my sleeve, trying not to think about how slippery that sleeve had become. The stranger's voice came low, calm. "Deputy Salisbury." I stopped. He paused, allowing those 3 words to hang between us, heavy as the storm pounding the roof. My blood cooled. I hadn't introduced myself. "Deputy Mark Salisbury," I said, voice firmer than I felt. The figure leaned into the beam. "You always respond yourself," he said, "even when you shouldn't." I exhaled, cautious. "State your name," I said, protocol. His smirk was the only answer. "Names are for people who survive," he said softly. The hush of the barn felt mortal suddenly, like any wrong move would bring the roof down. Behind him, the injured man groaned, and a stray bolt of lightning illuminated the room, revealing walls dark with years of neglect and scribbles of old graffiti. I spotted a broken lock hanging from a door frame at the far end, easy entry for someone who knew this place. "My partner's on the way," I lied, head tilting toward the injured man. He coughed again, and I put a hand on his shoulder. "We'll get you help." The stranger moved forward, each step deliberate. Gravel under his boots crackled louder than wet straw under mine. He stopped 5 feet from me, and I noticed his chest rising, breathing steady. A man too calm for a trespasser in a storm. "You still think this is a trespass call?" he asked. The tone was casual, but I felt the electric charge in his words. "You called me here," I said. "Why?" His eyes glinted, too dark to read. "To prove you're predictable," he answered. "You always come alone. You always bring your light. You always expect the worst." The radio popped to life, dispatch crackling. "Deputy Salisbury? Are you there?" I moved a step, light grazing his leather jacket. Water dripped onto the floor between us. "I'm here," I said. "Got an injured man. Stand by." The stranger raised an eyebrow. "You always broadcast your location," he said. The rain hissed where it met the metal roof. I swallowed past the lump in my throat. "Let him go," I said evenly, pointing my flashlight at him. The injured man's breathing was shallow, and a sense of urgency thrummed in my veins. The stranger laughed, low and humorless, then pointed behind me. I turned. The barn worker had climbed to his feet, staggering but upright, eyes wild. He staggered toward me, blood spotting his shirt collar. My head spun. "Don't!" I shouted, but the worker lunged. The stranger stepped to the side, cold observation in his posture. I dove, grabbing the worker's shoulder, twisting him to the floor. I rolled us both and realized the worker's hand was empty. His panic had turned inward. He whimpered. "They're here," he babbled. "You don't want to see." His body convulsed, and his eyes rolled back. A heavy thud echoed as the barn door swung shut behind the stranger. Rain gusted through the gap. I flattened against the cold concrete, wrestling the worker's flailing limbs, radio in hand. My muscle memory kicked in. I clipped off the locking latch and yanked the door open. The wind nearly knocked me back as I glimpsed the barn's porch. No stranger, no footprints in the mud, just the diner headlights flickering on Highway 101, 3 miles distant. The worker slumped completely, inert in my arms. I forced him upright, pressing my back against damp wood. "Stay with me," I said, voice tight. I reached for my radio. "Dispatch, I need immediate assistance. Civilian down, possible seizure or worse." Static answered. In that roar, I thought I heard a second door slam inside the barn, loud enough to vibrate my teeth. My heart hammered. The worker's pulse felt weak, a lazy thump against my fingers. He stared at me, eyes wide, and whispered, "He's coming back. He knows your name." Lightning cracked overhead and rain pelted the barn's side, sounding like stones thrown against tin. I glanced back into the darkness, flashlight beam trembling as I raised it. The interior looked empty, but I knew better. Silence had turned its face again, and the lull before violence was the worst kind of scream. I scooped the worker's arm over my shoulder and half-carried him to the patrol car, mud splattering my boots. The dash clock read 12:24. 6 minutes, that was all I'd had. 6 minutes for an enemy to vanish like a ghost from a locked barn. I strapped the worker into the passenger seat, then climbed in and locked the doors. My hands shook as I radioed in, voice low but urgent. "Unit on scene. Injured civilian loaded. Heading to Redwood General. Make it priority 1. The engine roared, and I backed out onto the gravel, headlights cutting a path through the rain. I glanced in the rearview mirror. The barn stood empty, lights off, silhouette like a tombstone in the black. My breathing grew ragged. I leaned forward, adjusting the broken lanyard on my flashlight. The metal felt heavy in my hand. My badge weighed heavier. I turned back onto Highway 101, wipers scraping across glass like falling fingernails. In the mirror, past my blurred reflection, I thought I saw a figure standing at the barn's doorway. Only I blinked, and the barn was dark again, too dark even for rain to wet its edges. I kept driving. Every mile felt like chains rattling behind me. The rain spattered against the windows, whispering threats I couldn't outrun. And somewhere in the dark, he was still watching. Mark Salisbury, alone and predictable, heading toward danger the only way he knew how. I eased the car onto the highway, rain lashing the windshield as I flicked the wipers to their highest speed. The injured man beside me lay still, breathing shallow and eyes half-lidded. My knuckles ached from gripping the wheel so tight I thought I'd crack the plastic. The radio crackled again. "Unit Salisbury, ETA on hospital?" "5 minutes," I replied, voice low. I swallowed past the lump in my throat, felt like fire in my chest. 10 seconds later, the back door of the patrol car's cage rattled. I glanced in the mirror. The worker's head lolled against the metal mesh, but his eyes were wide and unblinking. "Stay with me," I muttered, pulling onto the access road that led to Redwood General. Gravel sprayed as I braked, the headlights cutting through the darkness in jagged lines. Rainwater pooled in ruts, and the truck fishtailed before I eased back on the accelerator. Redwood General's neon sign sputtered overhead. Emergency. I cut the engine and reached back, unbuckling the worker's seatbelt. He slid out of the car like a rag doll. I half-dragged him to the sliding doors, heart pounding. Inside, fluorescent lights hummed and flickered. A nurse grabbed him and eased him onto a gurney. "Deputy?" she said, eyes narrowing. I nodded. He said something about someone in the barn. She glanced back toward the parking lot. "We'll take it from here." I nodded again, voice gone. Back outside, I stood in the rain, jacket soaked through. My boots left squelching footprints across the concrete. The barn's silhouette loomed across the field, dark, silent. I lit a cigarette, inhaling hard. Smoke curled in front of my face, and I realized I was trembling. I pinched the bridge of my nose. Dispatch came over the radio. "Mark, any update?" I flicked the lighter closed. "Subject in custody," I said. "Possible hypothermia, seizure, unclear." "Copy that. You need a ride back?" I exhaled. "Number?" "I'll drive patrol car back on my own." I dropped the radio mic and headed toward the patrol car parked under the flickering street lamps. I climbed in, started the engine, and sat for a moment, listening to the rain and my own breath. Then I tapped the mic. "Salisbury to dispatch, requesting an evidence tech at Whitaker Barn." "Static, then. We'll send one with backup." I drove away without waiting. The worker was safe for now, but I knew that Barn held more than one story. The following morning, I met CSI at the scene. The rain had stopped, but the ground was churned into mud. They photographed footprints leading from the barn's side door, then disappeared inside. I circled the perimeter, flashlight in hand despite the daylight. Weathered siding, broken windows, a loose latch on a board covering the back entrance. Nothing looked different, yet everything felt wrong. I crouched beside a set of footprints that led into a shallow ditch, half filled with water. The prints were deep, wide, matching the stranger's boots. They trailed off into knee-high grass, then vanished. I stood and sighed, brushing mud from my fingers. "That ditch leads to the old irrigation canal," I said to Officer Torres, who'd arrived with coffee. He peered at the prints. "You think he used it to leave? Or hide?" I shrugged. Either way, he knew this land. Torres frowned. "You think it was personal?" I stared at the barn. More than personal. 3 days later, I found a package on my desk at the station. No return address, just a single Polaroid taped to the top. I peeled it off. In the photo was my office, taken from outside the window, and me sitting at that very desk, head in hands. I felt bile rise. The edges of the photo were yellowed, as if it had been taken weeks earlier, but the writing on it was fresh. "I see you." I looked around the station. Empty hallways, filing cabinets, the muted hum of fluorescent lights above. My breath came fast. I slipped the photo into my pocket and left without telling anyone. That night, I drove the perimeter of the county's unpaved roads, checking each abandoned structure's alarm feed on my handheld scanner. Barns, old farmhouses, even an empty schoolhouse, all dark, all silent. But at the curtained window of Deputy Collins's house, I saw a flash of light. I pulled over. Collins lived alone since his divorce, 2 miles off the main road. His porch light was on, the blinds drawn. My chest tightened. I radioed dispatch. "Unit Salisbury needs immediate backup at Collins' residence." They came too late. I found the door unlocked, Collins nowhere in sight. The TV was on, static flickering. Empty coffee mugs on the table. Then I saw it. Footprints in the foyer, muddy and wide, leading toward the back door. I followed them into the yard, then stopped. At the edge of the lawn, Collins's patrol car sat, driver's door open, keys missing. The night was silent once more, and I realized the nightmare was only beginning. I kept the scanner close against my chest as I wound down County Route 37, headlights slicing through mist rising off the fields. My knuckles were still bruised from the barn, but that ached less than the cold dread settling in my gut. Route 37 is nothing more than packed dirt, and every rut and rock rattled the truck. But I drove slow, too slow maybe, but I needed to see every inch of that road. The night was quiet except for the engine's hum and the scanner's low buzz tracking Collins's coded signals. Collins should have responded instantly to my last transmission. Instead, I'd heard nothing but silence. I passed the old Miller farmhouse, roof caved in, windows boarded. I killed the headlights and coasted past, using the glow-in-the-dark reflective paint on the road markers to guide me. My breath frosted the glass as I leaned forward. I scanned the tree line, checking dark hollows where someone could hide. My heart thudded, too loud, too regular in my ears. I flicked the scanner volume and heard Colin's tag calling for backup far away, his voice calm as if nothing was wrong. That chill from the Whitaker barn came back full force. I killed the scanner's volume and listened only to the diesel engine, counting seconds between pulses of my heartbeat. Lightning forked across the sky. I flicked the wipers. Rain had stopped, but the air felt damp, thick. I eased to a stop at the crossroads where Collins's driveway branched off. A single street lamp flickered there, barely enough light to show the curve. I stared at the silhouette of his house, windows dark, but for a glow in one hallway window halfway up the front. I opened my door and stepped out. Mud sucked at my boots. The air smelled of wet grass and gasoline. I took 2 steps before headlights cut below me. Colin's cruiser sliding onto the dirt road. I held up a hand, but the truck skidded past me, ignoring my gesture. Its engine roared as it descended the hill, red lights pulsing through the windshield. But I knew those flashers. He would have turned them on. I jogged after it, breath catching cold in my lungs. The cruiser vanished from view downward, and I got back in my truck, lowered the window and blasted the siren. "Collins! Collins!" I screamed into the night. No answer. I punched the gas and followed every curve. The cruiser's grill just a dark shape ahead. We barreled past the ruined church, past fields that stank of manure and rot. The road narrowed, then opened onto a low plateau overlooking the valley. The ground dropped off sharply, no guardrails. The cruiser's lights flashed once and went out. I slammed my brakes so hard I nearly smashed through the bumper. The road in front of me lay empty, save for 2 parallel grooves where the cruiser had slipped off the edge. They ended in nothing but fog rolling up from the valley floor. I leaned out the window, trying to see the bottom, nothing but white. My stomach clenched. I closed the window and shivered. Fired up the truck again and called dispatch. "Unit Salisbury to dispatch, I'm at the overlook. Collins's cruiser is gone, off the road, no sign of him. I need assistance now." The radio crackled. "Copy, Salisbury. Units are en route." I switched the scanner back on. Static. Collins's tag popped once, then died. A single burst. I tried his direct line. Nothing. I jammed the button again. "Collins! Collins! Respond!" No reply. My stomach turned. I cut the engine and climbed out again, flashlight in hand, boots sinking into damp dirt. I took a step forward and heard the metal scrape, right at the edge of the plateau. I flicked on the beam and shone it down the slope. There were tracks. 2 deep imprints leading over the edge and disappearing into the fog. I swallowed bile, knuckles white on the flashlight. I scanned the rim, heart hammering. Nothing but night. I pushed myself forward, toes dangling over the drop, and swallowed hard. The ground cracked beneath me. I stumbled. Pain shot up my leg, and I caught myself on a jut of rock. I realized I was bleeding, a thin trickle from my shin. I pressed my hand there, big drops splattering the soil. Didn't matter if I was hurt. Collins needed me. I turned and sprinted back to the truck, boots slipping. Inside, I slammed the door and dialed dispatch again. "I'm heading back up the hill. Careful, road's slick. Backup will meet me halfway." No sooner had I finished than the scanner crackled with a frantic voice. Collins, but distorted. "They took me. Help. Trapped." Then nothing. Static. I froze, hand hovering over the mic. My breath froze in my throat. I clicked the scanner off. The next hour was a blur, driving on half-empty canisters of adrenaline, scanning every ditch, every hollow, the occasional distant bark of coyotes somewhere. The moon broke through the clouds, pale and fickle. I passed the charred remains of an old barn that had burned years ago and now stood like a blackened skeleton. Headlights caught something inside, dark shape, but when I aimed the beam, nothing. Heart racing, I got out and circled, finding only ash and broken glass. Nothing living. I returned to my truck as dawn bled into the sky. My uniform was crusted with mud and dried blood. The scanner stayed silent. I tapped the mic. Dispatch, backup at Point Charlie. I need air support. They acknowledged. A helicopter in 20. That meant 20 minutes, plenty of time for him to vanish. I leaned forward, tapping the wheel, grit under my nails. The fog wouldn't clear until the sun burned it off. I stared at the sky's pale glow, praying the chopper arrived before daylight slipped away entirely. A shadow moved at the edge of my windshield, something crouching on the passenger side. I jerked upright. The beam caught a twisted smile on a face I recognized too well. Same high cheekbones, same sunken eyes, only sharpened by darkness. My blood ran cold, the stranger from the barn. He pressed his hand against the glass, no weapon, but the intent was clear. He wiped a drop of rain from his lip, stepping back into the mist. Silence swallowed him, and I blinked. My radio crackled. Air support is inbound, Deputy Salisbury. The rotors whined in the distance. I exhaled. Relief and terror tangled in my lungs. I tapped the door lock and turned the lights on. "This is Deputy Salisbury," I said, voice steady despite shaking hands. "Air support, get ready to secure the plateau. We're dealing with a professional." The night swallowed my words. The chopper's whoop-whoop grew louder, cutting through the fog like a blade. I straightened, braced myself, and stepped out into the dawn-chilled air, determined to end this, but knowing deep down that nothing would ever be the same once the sun rose fully. I checked my watch, 5:14 a.m. The sky was paling at the horizon, but fog still clung to the ground like a living thing. The helicopter's spotlight sliced through the mist, illuminating the plateau in stark white arcs. My boots sank into the damp earth as I approached the edge. Still no sign of Collins, and the stranger had vanished without a trace. My breath caught every time the light swept over the churned mud where the cruiser had slipped off. I raised my voice to the wind. "Air support, grid search sector Alpha." The pilot's voice crackled back over the scanner, calm but urgent. "Copy that, Deputy Salisbury. Beginning search pattern now." I paced along the rim, flashlight and duty weapon in hand. Each beam uncovered nothing but soggy grass and squishy earth. I tapped the holster with a shaking thumb, mind replaying Collins's last distorted words over the scanner. "They took me, help, trapped." I'd raced up here expecting a body or a capture, and found only abandoned tracks leading into emptiness. Now, with daylight approaching, the chance of survival dwindled. My heart wouldn't let me settle for body recovery. I needed to find him alive. Collins was more than a deputy. He was my friend. And somewhere below this ridge, he was waiting, and possibly still alive. The helicopter's searchlight swung toward the mist-shrouded valley below. I peered over the edge, level with where the cruiser had gone. The slope dropped steeply, but not impossibly so, just overgrown with brush and high grasses. If Collins had survived the drop, he'd be hidden in darkness and fog. I clipped my flashlight onto my jacket, dropped my weapon into a ready grip, and eased forward, boots sliding on the wet soil. The chopper light followed me, painting stark shadows in the swirling fog. Each heartbeat felt like a march deeper into the unknown. Careful, foot by careful foot, I descended the bank. The only sounds were the whoop-whoop of the chopper above and my own ragged breaths. The night's chill had seeped into my bones, but adrenaline kept me moving. I passed clumps of reeds, dripping moisture. My knees buckled once, and I caught myself on a low-hanging branch. The helicopter spotlight bounced off the leaves, illuminating my path. I crawled under a broken fence, mud caking my pants. A shout crackled through the air. "Deputy Salisbury, over here!" I aimed my flashlight toward a dark shape near a fallen oak. I ran the last few yards, heart thudding. There, half buried in mud, was Collins's patrol flashlight, still clipped to his belt. No Collins. I crouched, heart in my throat, scanning under the tree roots. My beam caught what looked like a hand sticking out from under the trunk's root plate. I swallowed hard, leaned forward, and cleared away the low branches. It wasn't Collins' hand, but a tattered piece of his uniform, part of his sleeve, torn and soaked. I traced the torn fabric to the ground and realized Collins had either cut himself free or been taken. My throat tightened. I radioed the helicopter. "Pilot, give me direct spotlight." I'm by a fallen oak, root plate tilted, possible hiding spot. The beam swung in, blinding. I shielded my eyes and stepped back. When I looked again, nothing but fog and swirling leaves. No chopper light. The radio crackled. "Salisbury, we lost signal. Wind conditions too dangerous to hover. We're pulling back." My chest seized. "Negative," I hissed into the mic. "We can't leave. He's down here." Static. Then, "Deputy, we can't maintain position. Moving to safe altitude." The helicopter banked away. Its searchlights dimmed and vanished. The plateau sat empty once more, sunrise yet to break. I stared at the sky, tore at my collar, and swore under my breath. The valley swallowed its secrets in mist and darkness. Collins was down there. Someone had him, or he'd run for his life. I had to find him before it got light enough for civilian hikers to wander into danger. I holstered my weapon and stood, scanning the slope. My boots stuck in thick mud, each step a fight. I reached the bottom without incident and dialed dispatch on my handheld radio. "Salisbury to dispatch. Air support withdrew. I'm on foot. Request ground units ASAP and K9. A distant bark answered. Farther than I'd sent it. I cursed, jammed the mic closed, and switched the radio off. K9 might smell Collins' scent and pick up his trail, but unless the dog was here, I needed to move fast. I pushed through a stand of willow saplings, branches slapping my face. The ground leveled into a meadow, dew-soaked grass brushing my knees. I groped for Collins's last transmission on my scanner. If it had come from down here, maybe I could pinpoint direction by triangulating signal strength on foot. I clicked through channels until I heard static, then a muffled voice fragment. Me. Trapped. I angled the scanner away from my chest, sweeping left then right. Each sweep stuttered between static and silence. Finally, the scanner crackled more when I faced north. I headed that way, trudging toward thicker fog patches where signal strengthened. The meadow ended at a rusted wire fence. I ducked under and emerged on a bed of dead leaves under breathless trees. My pulse pounded as I stepped quietly, scanning for movement. A faint whimper carried on the damp air. I froze. Faint, but human, weak voice calling out. I dropped to one knee, flashlight trained on the ground. The sound came again, closer, under a collapsed shed. My heart leapt. I sprinted toward the ruin, prying away loose boards revealing darkness beneath. "Collins?" I whispered, voice hoarse. "Officer Collins? I'm here." No answer, then a soft cough. Relief surged. I climbed inside, forcing aside rotted beams. Underneath lay Collins, propped against a beam, face streaked with mud and dried blood. His uniform was soaked, sleeve ragged where fabric had torn. Eyes half closed, he tried to grin. "Mark," he rasped. I scooped him into my arms as best I could. His weight was slight, feverish. "Got you," I said, voice cracking. "Hang on, buddy." The shelter smelled of rot and earth. Fog seeped in around the broken floor. I wrapped my jacket around him, then radioed dispatch. I located him. "Exiting the ruins. Need medevac chopper ASAP." He slurred, pointing weakly. "The man, he watches," before convulsing. I held on tight, pressing my side to the beam to leverage lifting him. The fog made each breath taste damp and cold. I crawled out, dragging Collins behind me. My boots slipped in mud as I retraced my steps toward the meadow. My scanner lit up with a new signal, my partner's own tag, weak but persistent. I stumbled toward it, Collins' weight dragging me down. Then the scanner cut out, gone. I staggered to my feet just as sunrise crept through the trees in pale ribbons. I paused, breath misting, and looked back toward the collapsed shed. The fog drifted inside, like smoke, swallowing the structure in ghostly tendrils. Collins moaned in my arms. I held him tight, scanning the valley with the scanner dead in my hand. My eyes adjusted to morning light, revealing a handprint or a smear in mud on the shell of the collapsed shed. Too clean, too deliberate, as if someone had left it for me to see. My radio crackled to life. "Deputy Salisbury, medevac will arrive in 10 minutes. Stay at your position." I nodded weakly, scanning Collins's face, breathing relief at seeing him alive. But then the hairs on my neck snapped straight. Footsteps in the underbrush, slow, measured. I lifted my head and saw, between the trees, the stranger's silhouette. He waited there, hands in pockets, staring. No fear in him, only that familiar clinical curiosity. He blinked at me, then lifted his hand in a greeting, slow, deliberate. I didn't respond. Collins groaned as I set him down gently, patting his shoulder. The stranger took a step forward, then another, moving into a shaft of rising sun. His leather jacket was soaked, and his boots were caked in mud. Boots that matched the prints at Whitaker Barn, at the plateau, at Collins's home, now here. He looked at me, eyes glinting. "Good work," he said quietly. "You found him." My hand twitched toward my weapon, but I held it. Collins stared at the man, eyes wide with recognition and terror. "Who are you?" Collins croaked. The stranger shook his head as if amused. "Names are for the living," he said softly. He turned his attention to Collins. "You survived," he observed. "But tell me, Deputy Salisbury, what happens now? Will you chase me again, call in backup, or will you finally learn that some of us never stop watching?" With that, he stepped backward into the mist and vanished. The wind sighed through the trees, stirring the fog into new shapes. I ran my hand across Collins' forehead, then lifted my eyes to the empty woods. Morning light cut through the haze, but the shadows held deeper darkness than night ever could. The helicopter's thump grew faint overhead. I realized I was breathing hard, chest tight. Collins coughed, then whispered, "He's not done." I nodded, voice tight. "No," I said, "he's not." And as the medevac chopper descended, I realized that this nightmare, once begun under the cover of rain and fog, would follow me through every dawn to come, unresolved and waiting, unending. I can feel the ache in my bones before I even shift the cruiser into drive. It's 1 o'clock in the morning, and the weight of 12 hours on the road clings to me like a second skin. My name's Deputy Mark Lawson, Clearwater County, Idaho. I've been on this beat long enough to know every mile of pavement, every hollow beneath the trees, every shuttered farmhouse that hovers at the edge of vision like a half-remembered dream. Tonight, I'm heading toward Miller Road, where the old Miller farmstead sits empty, its white paint scabbed with dirt and age. I passed it 100 times before dawn, but never had business stopping here, until the dispatcher's voice crackled over the radio 20 minutes ago, rattling my calm with a single line. Possible distress call on Channel 5, faint voice saying, "Help me," no confirm tone. I thumbed the mic, tried for a clearer channel. Nothing but static, like the world itself is broken. I eased off the highway and onto the gravel, headlights carving 2 pale beams into the night. Gravel crunches loud beneath my tires, each stone a reminder that I'm alone. No backup until I call them in, and calling them in means risking whatever, or whoever, is out there. I climb out, boots thudding, and the porch light ahead flickers twice, then stutters out. It's the worst kind of darkness. It feels alive, watching. My flashlight's beam sweeps over peeling boards, the door hanging crooked on one hinge. I pause at the edge of the porch, inhaling the scent of dead grass and old wood. The radio sputters. A soft click, a breath I can't place. "Deputy Lawson," I call, voice low. I press the door further open. It groans like a wounded animal. Inside, the air is stale, thick with dust motes floating through the beam. Kitchen chairs lie overturned, and a porcelain bowl smashed on the linoleum. It looks staged, like someone wanted me to see it, wanted me to know they were here first. I move methodically, hallway first, living room, then down the narrow corridor. My heart hammers with every step, but I keep my voice calm in the mic. "Dispatch Lawson, I'm inside Miller residence, no sign of a caller, checking rooms." I pause by a cracked bedroom door. The beam reveals a cracked photograph on the floor. 2 children, laughing, arms around, their father. The dust is fresh. Someone smashed this picture and left. In the next room, a window stands open, curtains flapping. Moonlight falls in stripes across the carpet. I see footprints, bare footprints, wet and smeared, leading out toward the barn. I crouch, checking them with a gloved finger. They head away, slow and unhurried, as if whoever wore them wasn't running. I swallow and call for backup again, voice steady. No answer. I follow the tracks to the barn, hand hovering near my holster. The door yawns open. Yes, someone's been here. Inside, the smell hits me, sharp and metallic, like blood or rust. A lantern sits on a hay bale, half burned, its wick blackened. I crouch, breath catching, and inspect the ground. More footprints and something else. Tire tracks, narrow like from a dirt bike. I radio the plate. "Dispatch, I've got tire tracks and footprints. Looks recent, I'm..." A low sound interrupts me. Half moan, half whimper. It comes from under the loft. My pulse spikes. Every instinct screams to retreat, but curiosity and duty won't let me. I climb the ladder, beam, searching. At the top, the hay floor is undisturbed, but at the far corner, a hatch has been pried open. A ladder descending into darkness. I check my flashlight, 1 bar left, then switch it on. The hatch creaks as I push it. The ladder rattles, and I begin my descent. The air changes, growing colder, damp. My light picks out rough walls, a dugout cellar or hiding spot. At the bottom, the beam falls on a small cot and a hamper of blankets, then movement. A shadow shifts beside the blankets. "Here," I whisper. The beam swings, revealing her. Pale face, dark circles under her eyes, jeans torn at the knee. She's maybe 16, clutching the blanket to her chin, eyes wide but empty. She doesn't cry or speak. She just watches me like I'm a stranger stepping into her nightmares. My stomach twists. I drop to one knee, voice soothing. I heard your call. You're safe now. Can you stand? No response, only that hollow stare. My fingers tighten on the flashlight, knuckles white. I slip a radio earpiece into my ear. Dispatch, I found a juvenile, alive but unresponsive. I need EMS and transport to Pinewood Memorial. No answer. Phone calls to county dispatch echo into nothing. I glance around, no obvious exit, no sign who put her here. The ladder shaft yawns behind me. I step back, giving her space, heart pounding so loud I fear she'll hear it. Then I notice scrawled words on the wall in charcoal. Watching. A chill crawls up my spine. I shine the beam around. The walls close in, shadows deepen. I kneel beside her, reach out, but pause when the beam picks up fresh footprints leading away from the cot toward a narrow tunnel cut into the stone foundation. They're small, wet, and new. "Hey," I murmur, rising. "You okay?" She blinks, but still no words. I have a choice. Pull her up the ladder and hope the barn's alone, or follow the footprints and risk what waits in that tunnel. Duty says, find the threat. Mercy says, get her to safety. My radio remains dead. I look at her, tattered blanket, silent hope in her eyes. I nod once, then point toward the ladder. "Come on," I say softly. She hesitates, then grips the rungs. I follow, heart in my throat. The tunnel entrance gapes behind me like an unanswered question. At the top, moonlight blinds me for a second. I guide her onto the barn floor. Hay dust billows around our boots. I steady her with an arm across her shoulders. As she rests her weight against me, a crack echoes above. The barn's loft shifting, settling, or someone climbing down behind us. I spin toward the hatch, gun drawn, flashlight swinging. The ladder is empty. The door has closed. I lower my arm, voice firm. "Stay here." She nods, eyes locked on mine. I inch toward the door, pressing my ear to the wood. No footsteps. Silence. Too deep to be safe. I flash the light into the loft. Shadows flicker. Then the beam catches something. Rope loops coiled, a gas can, a crowbar. Tools of escape or instruments of terror. I swallow hard, mind racing. They were here, they brought her, but they're gone now. Or they're still here, somewhere in the dark. I back down the ladder, guiding her into the cool night air. Gravel crunches as I herd her toward my cruiser. I glance back once. The barn door, dark and silent, seems almost alive. A faint whisper touches the wind. "Help me." I freeze. She trembles at my side. I grip her hand, leading her into the cruiser. I hit the siren as I pull away, light stabbing into the night. But the road is empty. The static on the radio swells again, then cuts out. In the rearview mirror, I catch her face, pale and hollow, and I realize the real danger isn't what we leave behind. It's what follows. The rearview mirror catches the faint glow of the barn's single broken window as we speed down Miller Road. I keep glancing back, expecting to see headlights or movement, but there's only darkness, stretching like a void between the fields. My passenger sits in silence, shoulders hunched, eyes fixed on the cracked dashboard. I've told her nothing, no promises, no explanations. Silence is safer than lies. My hand tightens on the steering wheel, knuckles whitening, and I realize how cold the night air feels, even with the heater blasting. I force myself to inhale, to focus on the road ahead. 2 white lines disappearing into the black. The radio still hums with static, a reminder I'm cut off from every other soul in this county. No backup. No certainty that what I left behind is safe, or that someone isn't watching me right now. We pass the old mill by the river, its rusted beams outlined against a sliver of moonlight. My mind flickers back to that tunnel exit, the way those charcoal words, watching, clung to the stone. My heart still thunders at the memory of the ladder hatch closing behind us, as if they'd trapped us in the barn's belly. I force myself to push the thought down. Not helpful, not now. I pull into the hospital's emergency bay, Pinewood Memorial, its neon cross flickering, and kill the engine. The girl humps forward, eyes flicking toward the entrance. I reach across, unlocking her door. She steps out like a frightened deer, and I guide her toward the automatic doors. The bright lights inside feel wrong, sterile. My torchlight would have made more sense. Nurses swarm, questions, checklists, quiet urgency. I stand back, watching them lead her away. My radio chirps, dispatcher finally free of static. Relief floods me. I give a quick report, then kill the call. No thanks, no small talk. I pad toward my cruiser, body heavy, and climb in. I lean back, rub my face, resisting the urge to drive off and never look back. But the strangest thing happens. My phone buzzes in my pocket. I pull it out. One message, no number, just a photo. The girl's face, eyes still hollow, lying on that cot in the barn cellar. The black frame of the hatch behind her is visible. My breath stops. My chest tightens. Whoever took it, they, followed us to the hospital. I belt the phone into the dashboard, hands shaking. I text back, "Who is this?" Immediate reply, "You know me." My pulse spikes. I slam a hand on the steering wheel. I glance back at the hospital windows. Clerks inside staring at me. My vision tunnels. There's nowhere to run, no quiet barn to hide in. Every dark road is a potential trap. I start the cruiser and peel out of the lot, tires screeching. The hospital recedes behind me. I punch the steering wheel. I need to think, need to get somewhere safe. But safe is a lie. With trembling hands, I navigate toward my house on Willow Creek Road. A small ranch style with neat hedges and a motion sensor light over the garage. My wife is home. She always is at this hour, waiting. I imagine her curled on the couch with that latest true crime podcast she can't get enough of. But tonight, I don't want comfort. I want answers. I pull into the driveway, lights off, no beacon to guide the watcher. I kill the engine and hold my breath, listening. The house is silent. No radio drone, no distant sirens. Peace, or the calm before something breaks. I open my door and step onto the asphalt. My boots clack as I cross to the garage. I leave the phone in the cruiser and head into the house, gun in hand. The door clicks shut behind me. Inside, the kitchen is dim. The clock on the stove reading 3:14 a.m. A half-empty mug of coffee sits on the counter, steam long since vanished. My eyes adjust. Everything looks normal. But I know it isn't. I move through the living room, eyes skimming shadows cast by the faint streetlight outside. I've installed blackout curtains. No chance for prying eyes. I check the locks on every door and window, twice each. Then I head upstairs to the girls' room, my daughter's room, 10 years old, with pastel walls and stuffed animals arranged on a shelf. My hand trembles as I close the door. I stare at her bed, untouched since I left this morning. I breathe deeply, reminding myself she's safe here. Everything's fine. No one tried to break in. I retreat down the hall, pausing at my bedroom door. The light is off. I ease inside and flick the switch. The room is just as I left it. My officer's uniform draped over the chair, my boots neatly aligned, and the shotgun propped in the corner. I lift the uniform, caress the fabric. It smells like sweat and duty. I sit on the edge of the bed, phone in hand. Another message. Look behind you. My skin crawls. I drop the phone. My eyes dart toward the closet. I stand, heart pounding, gun raised. The closet door's slightly ajar. pale sliver of darkness seeps out. I step toward it. Every instinct screams to retreat, yet my duty demands I face it. I shove the door open. Inside, nothing. Only hangers and a thrift store suit jacket I never wear. I exhale, lowering the gun. Then I notice it. A small scrap of paper pinned to the inside wall with a thumbtack. I reach for it, fingers numb. It reads, "Thanks for helping her." Now it's your turn. The walls seem to shift. The light flickers. I whip around, no one there. My radio bleeps, static this time, not a call. A voice distant but clear. "Deputy Lawson." I spin, gun up, searching halls. Silence. The voice echoes. It's time. I press the mic. No signal. My heart thunders. They're here, and they've never stopped watching. The engine's roar fades behind me, replaced by the hollow echo of my own breath. I'm sitting on the edge of the bed, gun still in my hand, heart pounding so hard it carries every tremor through my entire body. The closet door stands open, the scrap of paper fluttering faintly in the stale air. "Thank you for helping her. Now it's your turn." I can feel the walls closing in. My uniform hangs too neatly on the chair. The rifle in the corner feels suddenly impotent. This room, my sanctuary, has become a trap. I glance at the phone on the nightstand. No messages, no calls, just the dim glow of the screen. I dare not look at what's already there. Footsteps approach outside the door, soft, deliberate. My pulse leaps. I aim at the door panel and squeeze off a single warning shot into the ceiling. Dry wood splinters. Dust drips. "Deputy?" A familiar voice, low and urgent. My wife's voice. Relief and horror twist together in my gut. She shouldn't be here. "Mark, I heard a shot. Are you okay?" I release a breath tinted with adrenaline. I lower the gun, my hand shaking so badly the barrel spins. "Emily, get back. Stay in the car." She emerges, overnight bag in hand, eyes wide with fear. "You texted me to come home. Are you hurt?" I open my mouth, but the words stick. Around the hallway corner the voice returns, layered over the static of my ruined radio. "It's time." Emily steps back. I seize her arm. "Listen, you have to go, now." She shakes loose and stumbles backward, tears in her eyes. "Mark, what is going on?" I want to answer. I need to answer. But my mind is fractured. Every memory of the barn, the girl, the messages, the tunnel, the abandoned horrors spinning together. A crash downstairs, something heavy, moving furniture, a deep metallic groan. My skin slithers with dread. I glance down the hall. The nursery door stands slightly ajar. My daughter's room. I sprint to the nursery, gun raised. The door swings inward. The room is dark except for a sliver of moonlight crossing the quilted bed. My daughter is missing. My scream catches in my throat. "Mark." Emily's voice, calmer now, holds me, but I wrench free and dive for the crib. Empty, mattress bare. "No." Footsteps behind me, slow, measured. I whirl, gun aimed, but the hallway is empty. The footsteps grow louder, though, walking straight down the hallway away from me, toward the front door. I race after them. At the top of the stairs I catch a flicker of movement at the bottom. A shadow slipping out the front door, the screen swaying. "Stop!" I bark. I fire twice, deafening cracks. The steps are empty when I reach the landing. No one there, only my serried bullet holes in the door frame. Dispatch calls on my radio. I ignore it. I throw open the front door into the chill night. The driveway is empty. My cruiser sits with its lights off, phone in the passenger seat. No sign of anyone. In the crisp darkness, I feel their eyes on me. I listen. Wind rustling through trees. Distant traffic hum on the highway. Nothing. Yet I know they're there. I flee back inside, locking the door, sliding the bolt. I check every window, latched, secure. The baby monitor crackles with static, as if echoing the voice that haunts me. I collapse to the floor in the kitchen, back against the cabinets. Emily crouches next to me, tears streaming. She presses her hand to my cheek, but I flinch away, too numb to feel anything but terror. "Mark," she whispers. "Our baby, where is she?" I close my eyes, willing the room to vanish. I taste blood where I bit my lip. My radio crackles again, louder now. "Deputy Lawson, time to finish the job." My head snaps up. The voice is dead center in my head, too close to call. The monitor's static intensifies. A wail, half lullaby, half scream. I scramble to my feet, charging down the hall, past the nursery. Empty. I fling open the closet in my room. Empty. Back downstairs, I tear open cabinets, closets, flinging aside pots and pans, clothes, boxes. Emily shouts behind me, but I can't hear her voice over the pounding in my skull. I burst into the garage. I find my cruiser keys in the bowl on the workbench. I jam them into the ignition and floor the pedal. The engine stutters to life. The headlights flood the driveway. I'm not leaving without her. I can't leave her. I swing out onto the street, tires tearing gravel. I race toward the barn on Miller Road, toward the place where it all began, where I thought I'd rescued someone. Maybe she's there, trapped in that tunnel. Maybe answers wait behind that hatch I forced shut. My radio springs alive with static. "Deputy Lawson, you're almost out of time." Ahead, the road forks. Left leads to the barn, right leads to town. My daughter's face flashes in my mind, eyes wide with fear, hair tangled. I veer left toward the darkness, and through the static I hear her voice, unmistakable. "Daddy." I hit the brakes. The cruiser screeches to a halt. Headlights dance across fields, then land on the open barn door, black and yawning. I step out, breathing ragged, gun ready. The air is thick with that same metallic scent from the clinic, the stale earthiness from the cellar. I take one step toward the barn, then another. A whisper curls around my ear. "Finish it." I raise my light and shine into the door. No barn, no road, no farmhouse, just endless night. And in that void, a shape emerges, small, pale, eyes hollow. My daughter stands before me, blanket in hand. She whispers, "Help me." She stands there in the beam of my headlights, her small frame swaying, blanket wrapped tight around her shoulders. The wind is dead still, as if the night itself is holding its breath. My heart jumps into my throat. My daughter, my sweet girl, her voice soft and broken, calling for me. "Emily," I whisper, a voice cracking. She blinks twice, stepping forward. Gravel slides under her bare feet. Every instinct screams that this isn't her. But the shape, the face, it's her. I lower the gun, tears welling. "Honey, it's okay, I'm here." The figure tilts her head, hair catching the light, eyes so empty they swallow the brightness. She lifts one hand, pointing past me to where the barn door stands open. Behind her, nothing but black. No walls, no hay, no barn. Just the field and the darkness beyond. I blink and turn. The barn is gone. There's only a gap in the tree line where the structure should be. Moonlight paints the empty clearing silver. I whirl back to her. She's still there. "Where is it?" I ask, voice shaking. She holds up a finger to her lips, a silent hush. Then she lifts the corner of the blanket. Beneath, strapped to her tiny arm with fraying rope, is a note. I step forward, heart thundering, and peel it free. The paper is stained red, like rust or dried blood. The handwriting is scratchy, childlike. "You're next." The words stare up at me. Raw, immediate. My skin goes cold. I fold it away, eyes on her eyes. They flicker, and for a moment I swear I see my own terrified face reflected there. Then they're empty again. A sound behind me, soft but insistent. Footsteps crunching on gravel. I spin, gun up, but nothing. Only the open sky. I turn back to her. She's disappeared. "Emily!" I roar. Silence. My daughter's face, her laugh, her tiny hand in mine, they all rush to me. But here, in this field, there's no girl. Only the dark and that note pressing against my palm. I stumble back to the cruiser, dropping to my knees beside it. My radio grabs life for a moment. Static, call signs, but nothing clear. I fumble for my phone, no signal. I press my thumb against the screen, no messages, no calls. The image of the real girl, alive in the hospital, floods my mind. I close my eyes, I rise, stepping away from the cruiser. The note baits me. "You're next." My breathing comes fast, loud in my ears. I look around. The trees line the road like silent judges. The moon rides high, full. The air tastes cold and metallic. I need to go back, to the hospital, to my daughter. I need proof that she's safe. My legs move before my mind catches up. I run toward the spot where the barn used to stand, but the ground is flat. No bones, no boards, just grass and stones. I stop, chest heaving. My boots sink into soft earth. I look down. Footprints lead away, small and childlike, heading south toward the woods. I follow them, heart hammering, mind racing. Each step is stiff with dread. The woods close in. Branches scrape against my jacket. My flashlight is still in the cruiser, gone with the barn. I surge ahead blindly, moonlight guiding me in dizzy stripes. The footprints fade, replaced by wheel tracks. Narrow and deep, like the bike from the first barn, twisting between trees. I force myself to keep going. Branches whip my face. My hands tremble. Then I see it. A mossy depression in the ground, half hidden. I kneel, shining my phone's dim glow. At the center is a rusted metal hatch, flush with the earth. Corners cupped by dead leaves. I press my palm to it. A chill runs through me. The hatch is warm, though, like something breathing beneath it. I find the edge with a fingernail and pry it free. Underneath, a shaft yawns, dark and narrow. I drop to one knee and look down, a ladder, rungs of rotted wood, descending into black. My daughter's voice from the barn floats back. "Help me." I swallow the lump in my throat, fumbling my radio. Still nothing. I tuck the note into my pocket and climb down. Each rung groans under my weight. When I reach the bottom, the air is thick, and the beam of my phone barely reaches the walls. Slick rock coated in moss. My foot lands on a small wooden platform, tilting under me. Ahead, past a pile of old boxes, I see movement. The pale blanket, the small figure, huddled in a corner. She sits on the floor, knees drawn up, rocking slowly. Light from above slants through the hatch, casting her in silhouette. I step forward. "Emily?" She lifts her head. Her hair spills across her face. I crouch beside her. Cold seeps through her clothes. I put a hand on her shoulder. She doesn't flinch. Instead, she tilts her head, eyes meeting mine. I reach for her, but she slides back. I glimpse behind her. Another hatch. 2 labs ago in Hidden Valley I saw a chamber like this. Tables, jars, empty spots on the wall where instruments were bolted. All gone now. Empty. Only chairs remain, metal and cold. "Why are you here?" I whisper. She rocks again, blanket slipping, revealing that fresh rope still tied to her arm. Underneath, bruises, black and blue. My stomach lurches. She pats a spot beside her. I sit, flashlight trembling. She reaches into the folds of her blanket, pulling out the note I stuffed in my pocket. It's damp. I take it, unfolding it slowly. The words have multiplied. Help us, find them, leave the girl. My breath catches. I look up. Behind the figure of my daughter, the chamber walls seem to shift. Shadows peel away until I see them. Silhouettes of people. 4 shapes at a table, hunched over something. A man's broad shoulders, a woman in a surgical mask, 2 more figures with tools in hand. They stir, but their forms are so dark I can't tell where they end and the walls begin. A high-pitched squeal echoes and the door behind me slams shut. I spin, gun drawn, but there's no ladder, only a solid wall of rock. I pound on it. Nothing. My voice echoes, "Let us out." I turn back to her. Her face is calm, unreadable. She's not a child, but a vessel. Emptied, hollowed. I kneel, pressing my forehead to the cool stone. "Who are they?" She doesn't answer. Instead, she whispers, "They're all here, inside the walls." I yank my phone from my pocket, light dancing across the damp floor. I sweep the beam around. The silhouettes at the table have vanished. Only chairs remain angled toward me as if waiting for my arrival. A sudden shift in the air, breath on my neck. I whirl, gun up. The hatch above creaks. Light spills through. I race toward it, tugging at the rim. It refuses to move. The cry from upstairs, my wife's frantic voice, echoes somewhere far away. Footsteps in the shaft above. A shadow drops through, landing with a soft thud. I raise my flashlight. The figure stands in the weak light. A man in a lab coat, his face hidden by a surgical mask. He tilts his head as if curious. My finger tightens on the trigger. "Let her go!" I shout. He doesn't move. Behind him, another hatch creaks open. My daughter falls through, landing at my feet. She looks up, eyes empty. No relief, no fear. She extends a hand. "Please," she says, her voice hollow. The man in the coat steps forward. In his hand, a metal tray. On it, razor-sharp tools and a vial of dark liquid. My daughter's hand trembles. The tray is inches from her palm. Heart thundering, I aim the gun. The man raises his free hand, palm open, a silent invitation. Behind me, the hatch closes with a bang. The chamber goes silent, save for our breaths and the faint drip of water. He smiles, a slow, deliberate curve I can't read. His eyes, visible above the mask, are cold. "Finish it," he whispers, voice distorted by the mask. My daughter stands and steps toward him, hand outstretched. I'm rooted to the spot, torn between the man's command and every instinct telling me to protect her. The door behind me vibrates, shaking as if the whole world is bumping against it. Outside, the woods call my name. I can hear my wife's distant scream. The man lifts the tray, the vial glints. My daughter reaches out. I close my eyes, voice hoarse. "No." But she takes the tools, and he nods. The hatch above me groans again, sealing. In the gloom, with only the soft drip and our breaths, I realize there is no rescue, no escape. My daughter looks at me with those empty eyes, and I understand. They always get you. They've always been here, inside the walls, inside the night, inside the line between protection and surrender. I remember the chill settling into my bones the moment I stepped out of my cruiser. It was nearly 3 a.m, the moon hidden behind a blanket of clouds that offered no light, only a deeper shade of gray. My breath steamed in front of me as I patted the bulge where my flashlight lived, checking batteries twice before I clicked it on. Gravel crunched under my boots, a sound so loud in the stillness it might have echoed for miles. I kept my hand resting on the handle of my service weapon, not because I expected trouble, but because after 20 years on the road, I learned that unease often came without warning. The call had been routine, a business alarm at Henderson's feed store on County Road 14. I'd handled dozens of those in my tenure. Most turned out to be faulty sensors or farm cats tripping beams. Still, as I turned off the road and headed down the rutted drive, I felt that familiar coil of tension wrap around my gut. The store's single porch light flickered beside a swinging neon sign that read, "Open." Except it wasn't open. Every pane of glass was dark, every door locked from the inside, or so I would discover. I clicked my radio. "Dispatch, Harper, I'm on scene. I've got Henderson's feed. No sign of forced entry so far." I felt the weight of my words, knowing my partner was spread thin on another call 20 miles south. I was alone. The wind sighed through the broken boards under the awning, producing a moan that rattled my ribcage. I swept the beam of my flashlight across the windows. Shattered shelving, sacks of grain spilled in dusty piles, a single rubber boot resting on its side. No footprints led from the sidewalk to the parking lot, which told me whoever tripped the alarm came and left without touching the front. I eased my door shut and clicked the patrol lights off. The red and blue glow always felt cruel when it stopped, like the town pulled a blanket too tight. I paused, listening. Outside, the siren of a distant ambulance warped through the trees before fading into nothing. My heart hammered. I reminded myself that sounds traveled differently at night. Stillness bred its own noise, every rustle between stalks of corn sounding like footsteps behind me. The side door to the storage shed was ajar. I approached with measured steps, fingers brushing the cold metal of my flashlight until I flicked it on. The beam landed on corn stalks stacked to the ceiling, then fell on something that didn't belong. A muddy print on the concrete floor, too large for a boot, too slanted for me. I knelt to inspect it. Drags marks ran from the doorway to the back corner. I swallowed, tried not to imagine what was dragged. Instead, I radioed backup. "Copy that, Harper, ETA 5 minutes." I backed away slowly, keeping my flashlight trained on the print. My glove brushed the edge of the smear, and a faint hum from my radio grazed my eardrum. The static grew louder, crackling like bones snapping, then clicked into my earpiece. "Harper." The voice was garbled, but unmistakably my own name. I froze, spine stiff. I hadn't keyed the mic. The static faded, replaced by silence so complete it left ringing in my ears. Sweat dripped down my neck despite the cold. I rose and pointed my light toward the back wall, where a small door took me by surprise. I'd done a walkthrough of this building last year. No such door existed. The hinges were new, the wood fresh. My breath caught as I pressed my palm to the grainy wood. A hush fell over the night, as though the wind itself held its breath. I whispered into my headset, "I've got an unmarked door, looks new, not on any map." No answer. My radio was dead. I slapped the mic, heard only a dull thud. The flashlight beam shook in my hand. Every deputy in the county used the same frequency. If this door cut my signal, then I was cut off completely. I forced myself to step closer and turn the knob. It resisted, then gave in with a hollow groan. Cold air rushed out, an unnatural draft for a sealed building. I stepped through. Inside was darkness so thick I could taste it. My flashlight revealed stacked barrels marked organic fertilizer, a faded window high on the wall, and a scuffed hatch in the floor. My pulse pounded. I knelt and traced the outline with my gloved fingers. It clicked under pressure, then sank, revealing a narrow staircase descending into pitch black. I swallowed against the cold knot of fear that lodged in my throat. I pulled out my phone and turned on the flashlight app. Just enough light to see the top steps. My hand found the railing, and I descended. each footstep echoing in a claustrophobic chamber of wet brick. My radio stayed silent in my pocket, which made every second feel like an hour. I reached the bottom and swept the light left and right. A low tunnel arched into the earth, slick walls glistening with moisture. The air smelled like rotten eggs and iron. I flicked off my phone light, listening to my own breathing, the drip of water somewhere ahead. I turned back the way I came. The hatch silently swung shut above me. My heart jolted. I banged on the hatch, kicked at the wood. No response. The tunnel breathed around me, a slow, measured rhythm as if the earth itself inhaled and exhaled. I pressed my cheek to the cool brick and whispered, "Dispatch, this is Deputy Harper. I'm in an underground tunnel at Henderson's Feed. I need assistance. Do you copy?" Silence. My radio lay useless at my side. I realized then the flashlight in my hand was sputtering. Its batteries drained even faster than usual. Cold sweat soaked my uniform. I clicked off the light and stepped forward, trusting my instincts. Each stride sent my boots, sliding on slick stone. My weapon was drawn, its beam the only guide. Suddenly, something scraped against my shoulder. A soft, wet sound like fingers sliding across flesh. My heart slammed. I spun, shining the light wildly. Nothing, just the tunnel, receding into darkness, the air humming with a low vibration. My breathing grew shallow, every sound amplified. The hum, a distant thump, as though something moved behind me, following my steps. I swallowed and forced myself onward. My boots left wet prints on the floor that vanished in the moment they were made, as if the tunnel reclaimed them. I reached a fork. 2 passages, identical, branching into black. I hesitated, then chose the right. The beam of my flashlight revealed scrawled markings on the wall, faded numbers, arrows, and a circle with a jagged line through it. None of it made sense, but it felt intentionally left, like a warning. Another thump sounded behind me. My blood froze. I spun again. No shape, no shadow, only the beam cutting a circle of light. I clicked off the light and listened. The tunnel was silent, save for the drip of water. My chest ached as I breathed, every inhalation sharp. I steadied myself, turned the flashlight back on, and ran forward, following the markings. I stumbled into a chamber, just large enough to stand in. The air was colder, the smell of iron stronger. My beam revealed something that made my stomach twist. A pile of discarded items, an old patrol hat, a cracked badge, a flashlight identical to mine. I froze, voice catching in my throat. I reached out and touched the cracked badge. It bore a name I recognized. My predecessor, Deputy Marshal Grant, missing since 1995. Beneath the pile lay a faded photograph of a family picnic. Grant, smiling, his wife and daughter beside him. My heart thundered. I backed away, tripping over something soft. I looked down, a coiled rope, its fibers slick with moisture. The rope led toward a hole in the floor. My mind raced. I shone my light into the hole. Darkness. A faint glow emanated from far below, pale and pulsating. I forced myself to focus. This was real. This was here, but how? I bent down and uncoiled the rope, tucking one end around my wrist. I radioed again, voice shaking. "Dispatch. Deputy Harper. If anyone's there, send help. I'm in the underground beneath Henderson's Feed. Something's here. Send backup now." Silence. I cleared my throat, feeling the rope press cold against my skin. The sick glow from below pulsed like a heartbeat. I exhaled and began my descent into the unknown. My flashlight flickered, and I gripped the rope, every nerve alive. The darkness closed in behind me as I slipped through the hole, and I forced my mind away from the images of that cracked badge and the empty chair back at the station where Grant's desk once stood. At the bottom, the light was brighter, an unearthly blue that seeped up from a pool at the center of a cavern. Moss-covered stones surrounded it, forming a rough circle. I stepped closer, pistol raised. The air crackled, and my hair stood on end. I peered in. The water was still, but the glow rippled outward in concentric rings. I felt drawn to it, as though the light whispered promises I couldn't hear. Then I heard it, a low murmur, like voices echoing from beneath the light, too distorted to name. I swallowed against a surge of panic. The rope above me jerked once, twice, as if someone climbed down behind me. My flashlight beam darted upward, catching nothing but the slick cavern walls. The glow pulsed faster, brighter, and I felt heat creeping up my spine. I backed away, but another pulse of light held me in place. I raised my weapon, knuckles white, and spoke into the silence. "This is Deputy Harper. I'm leaving. I'm getting out now." The glow froze. Then, with a sudden rush of wind, it collapsed inward, plunging the cavern into darkness so complete it swallowed every ounce of light. My flashlight died. My radio stayed silent. I stood alone, fingers tightening around the rope, heart pounding like a drum in my ears. Then, I heard the faint scrape of rocks shifting. Something moved in the dark, something big. I yanked on the rope. It wouldn't budge. My flashbang hadn't worked earlier. My stun gun hadn't worked. The cavern responded with a sigh, soft, mocking, and then a distant thud of stone falling. I whispered, voice raw, "God help me." I forced my eyes to adjust. The darkness pressed in around me, suffocating and alive. My fingertips brushed the damp cavern floor, rough stone grooves cutting into my gloves. My heart pounded so fiercely I was certain it would burst from my chest. I could taste blood where my teeth had bitten my lip in fear. Each breath felt like razor blades sliding down my throat. I reached out and gripped the rope with both hands. My fingers trembled, knuckles whitening. My booted feet found purchase on a narrow ledge carved in the rock. I thought of home, my cot at the station, the faded family photo I kept taped to my dashboard. I pictured the sunrise I'd missed, the steaming coffee my partner Lewis would pry from my cold fingers if they ever found me. I willed myself to climb. One hand over the other, I hauled myself upward. The rope burned my wrist where it wound tight. My arms screamed in protest, heat flooding my muscles, sweat pooling behind my neck despite the cold air. I pulled again. The rope slipped through my grasp. I cursed and grabbed tighter. My flashlight lay somewhere below, its dying beam a memory. I climbed blind, listening to the drip of water somewhere above, to the steady thump of my own heart, echoing in my skull. Suddenly, a sharp tug, not from my hands but from above. My muscles tensed. I froze mid-pull, chest heaving. Cold breath washed across the back of my neck. Skin prickled. I swung a fist back where I thought the presence lingered, rocking on the rope. Nothing but darkness and the taste of fear. I climbed faster, my boots slipping on wet stone. I prayed the ladder I'd seen from above, nail-scarred rungs driven into the wall, lay just out of reach. My hands found the first rung, gnarled and slick. I yanked myself upward, knuckles scraping bark like grooves. The space narrowed. The brick tunnel above swallowed me. My head broke through first. The stale, mildewy air of the storage shed hit me like a fist. I coughed, lungs burning. I squinted, blinking against the sudden brightness of my phone's flashlight. I was sprawled face down on cold concrete, rope trailing from my wrist through the hatch. I pushed up on trembling arm, scanning the shed. The side door stood open, moonlight slicing through the frame. My cruiser's red and blue lights strobe flashed through the broken window glass. I hadn't heard it arrive. I staggered toward the door, phone still clutched like a lifeline. Outside, Louis and Marquez stood at the threshold, weapons drawn. Marquez's face was pale. "God damn it, Harper," Louis called. "You gave us one hell of a scare." I swallowed, voice a rasp. They followed me up. I glanced over my shoulder at the hatch. I expected to see something rising. An inhuman shape, a pale face, but saw only blackness. "I found you in here," Marquez said, frowning. "We heard my radio call. You sounded like hell." She reached down to touch my shoulder. Her hand trembled. I nodded, unable to speak. Pain throbbed in my wrist where the rope had cut my skin. I pulled free, watching red droplets bead where the fibers had rubbed away my glove. I shook my head, trying to clear the fog. "We need to seal it," I managed, voice low. "Lock this door, board it up." They exchanged looks. Louis sighed. "You sure it's safe?" "We don't have authority to seal private property." I cut him off. "Trust me, nobody goes down there again." The tremor in my voice betrayed me. I cleared my throat. "We'll talk to the county in the morning." He nodded. Marquez closed the hatch and bolted it from above. Louis wedged a plank across the hinges. We piled scrap lumber against it until it looked like a coffin. I jammed the last board in place and stood back, chest tight, eyes wet. Louis rapped his knuckles on the planks. "That'll hold for now." The three of us lingered in the moonlight, the shed behind us silent and watchful. I shivered, wrapping my arms across my chest. The wind had picked up, carrying a faint vibration from beneath the ground. An almost inaudible thrum, like distant machinery or a slow heartbeat. I stepped forward, hand on the outer door handle, and pressed my ear against the wood. The thrum pulsed stronger, then faded. Marquez spoke softly. "Harper, you're shaking." I pulled away, straightening my uniform. "I'm fine." But I wasn't. My mind replayed the glow beneath me, the voices murmuring in a language I couldn't understand. Something down there was alive, ancient, and watching. We returned to the cruiser. Inside, I lit a cigarette, hands unsteady. Louis glanced at the board over my head guard, where I'd scribbled last night's call info. Unmarked door. Underground. Backup Trayfem. He shook his head. "Want to file this as a prank? Faulty wiring?" I stared out at the shed. The porch light flickered once, then died. "No," I whispered. "Something else." He frowned but didn't press it. The siren head topper faded into darkness as we left the property. We drove in silence, the road spitting up gravel under our tires. At the station, I logged the incident, vague by design. I wrote a suspicious opening discovered, possible unauthorized entry, and structure to be secured pending county action. No mention of tunnels, no mention of Grant's badge or the light. I clocked out without ceremony. In my house, sleep felt like betrayal. I lay on the sofa, staring at the ceiling. My phone buzzed. 2 texts from my wife, asking if I was okay. I typed back, "Fine." Just a long night, then I deleted it. I couldn't explain down there. I couldn't explain what I'd felt, how it had pulled at me, promising things I didn't want. I closed my eyes, but images flickered. The pile of Grant's things, the electric blue glow, the shape that trailed me up the rope. I drove myself back out yesterday, parked at the edge of the feed store property. No cruiser lights, just my headlights off. Engine humming. I watched the broken window from my car, feeling the almost imperceptible vibration again. It was stronger, keener, like something had grown hungrier. I stepped out, pistol unused in my hand. The board over the hatch looked solid, but I could almost hear it creak. I pressed my palm against it. The thrum was loud now, inside my skull as much as in the ground. I pressed harder. The board flexed slightly. I fell back, heart racing. I took a step, and the vibration stopped. Silence, thick and absolute. My breath grew shallow. Then, through the pane of shattered glass, I saw it, a face, pale, angular, eyes like smudges of shadow. It pressed its lips to the glass and inhaled slowly. I froze. It slowly turned away and vanished into the darkness behind the wall. I sprang forward, yanked at the board, but it was solid. I staggered back to my car, slammed the door, locked it. The engine roared to life. I didn't glance back as I sped down County Road 14, gravel spraying behind me, leaps of moonlight dancing across the dash. My radio remained dead. I know they'll call me crazy. I know there are protocols, files to open, departments to notify, but I won't. Not now. Not while I still have a choice. Because I heard something down there, whispered my name, beckoned me back, and if I ever go back, I might not come out. And no one will know where I vanished until the blue glow flickers in their nightmares, pulling them into the dark, leaving only footprints that fade mid-stride and a service weapon lying by itself in the snow. I locked my doors, silence pressing in, and I realized the vibration beneath my feet hadn't stopped. It was in me now, a pulse echoing through my bones, reminding me that I carry it with me. I'm Harper, Deputy John Harper, and I'm never leaving the house again, not until we seal that shed forever. Because whatever's down there, it's waiting, and one day it'll pull me back in. I heard the walls before I saw them, soft scraping, like fingernails dragged across plaster, echoing through the hollow corridors of the old sheriff's station where I'd holed up. I had the door locked behind me, the lights turned low, and still I could hear it. My partner, Lewis, was the first to notice. He looked up from the paperwork I'd left him. "Harper?" he said, voice tight. "You okay?" I nodded, though it felt like the room was closing in around me. I kept my weapon within arm's reach, flashlight clipped to my belt, senses stretched taut. The sound came again, a muted scratching, distant but deliberate, almost as if someone was marking the walls with something sharp. I forced myself back out into the night. The station felt colder at this hour, even with the heating on low. The wind howled through broken windows, rattling the frames, carrying with it the faint hum of that blue light, though none should be on at this hour. The parking lot, which by day teemed with squad cars, was empty except for my cruiser. I climbed in, shut the door, and let the engine idle. In the glass, I saw my reflection, dark circles under my eyes, jaw clenched, uniform rumpled. I started the radio, static, but no voices this time. I keyed the mic. "Dispatch, this is Harper Tugao." "Do you copy?" Nothing but static. I needed to know if the vibrations I'd felt under the feed store had spread, if the thing in the tunnel was stirring. So I drove back out to Henderson's feed. The gravel drive crunched under my tires, a familiar rhythm that did nothing to calm me. Moonlight filtered through ragged clouds, casting fleeting beams across the boarded-up shed. I parked 50 yards away, engine off, lights dark. My breathing was loud in the cabin, my pulse slammed in my ears. I grabbed my flashlight, moved to the edge of the lot. I paused, listening. The air was still, too still. Then I heard it. Low thrum, a vibration beneath the ground, pulsing at a slow, steady cadence. It matched my heartbeat. I followed it, careful not to step on broken glass or old bolts that rattled like distant thunder. The thrum grew louder as I approached the shed. I ran my hand over the boards, solid, but I felt the faint hum through the wood. My stunt gun was clipped at my side, but I didn't want to use it unless I had to. This wasn't an intruder. It was something else. I circled to the back, where the side door stood ajar. The latch had been pried loose. Someone had tested my barricade. I pressed my shoulder against the door and pushed it open, flashlight guiding me into the shadows. The shed smelled of rot and damp straw. I swept the beam across warping tools on the wall, the old suit of coveralls hanging from a nail. No rope, no hatch. Yet the thrum persisted, louder here, as if the earth beneath sprung a heartbeat of its own. I pressed my ear to the floor, cement, but I felt the vibration clear as in my bones. Then I heard it, a whisper, so faint I thought I'd imagined it. Harper. It curved around the letters like smoke, curling around my spine. I stepped back, shining the light around. No one. The air shifted, a cold gust brushing past me though the door stood shut. My reflection flickered on a rusted steel barrel. In it, I saw not myself, but a man rooted to the spot, eyes wide, mouth opening to call a warning. Only nothing emerged but the sound of my own ragged breath. Something moved behind the coveralls. I spun, weapon drawn, beam snapping to the shadow. The overalls fluttered as if a breeze moved through them, though the air was still. I stepped forward, hand tight on the grip. I yanked the garment away from the wall and recoiled when beneath it was a handprint scrawled in fresh mud, 5 fingers splayed, the imprint sinking into the wood. It dripped down in thick beads. I swallowed. This was no prank. I limped, my ankle still bruised from the hatch climb, toward the front of the shed. The vibration pulsed in rhythm with that blue glow I'd seen below, beckoning me. I pressed my ear to the wall, and this time the voice came more clearly. Come back. A soft, sorrowful plea. I stepped back, fist pressing into the wood. My knuckles scraped, sending splinters into my glove. The thrum shifted, slower now, heavier, like something rolling in the depths beneath. I moved to the windows. Boards had been torn off one side, splintered fragments scattered across the floor. I pried at the remaining planks. Outside, I could see nothing but darkness and the silhouette of my cruiser. The shock of cold wind hit me as I slipped outside, flashlight dancing across the lot. I scanned for footprints. None. The boards lay inside, as though the shed itself had exhaled, pushing them inward. I bent to pick one up, but hesitated when the ground beneath shivered. It was the only movement in the stillness, but it was enough. Then the sound came from the vent near the roof, a scraping, slow, deliberate. The metal louvers quivered. My hand went to my mouth to stifle a yell. I aimed the beam upward, nothing but shadows. I backed up, letting the beam follow me. The vibration underfoot slowed to a faint tremor. The whisper, too, faded, leaving only the night's emptiness. I retreated toward my cruiser without looking back, heart thundering. I climbed in, locked the doors, locked the windows. I turned the heater on full blast, but it did nothing to warm me. I sat there, staring out at the dark shed. The door closed, the boards scattered. The thrum faded completely, replaced by silence that felt heavier than sound. My radio crackled, static at first, then a voice. "Harper?" It was Lewis. Relief and dread flooded me. I keyed the mic. "I'm out here. Something's wrong. I can't explain it." My voice shook. "It's in the ground. It calls me back. It knows my name." His reply was rushed. "Harper, get back to station." "Not yet," I interrupted. "I need to know what it wants. I need to see it again." I turned off the radio. Silence answered. I stared at the rearview mirror, saw pale eyes reflected in its glass. My own, but empty. The night beyond the windshield felt alive, sentinel. I jerked the door open and stepped out, gun ready. The wind was calm now, the world waiting. I approached the shed, boots crunching, footsteps echoing in the void. I pressed my flashlight's beam at the door. It shone against fresh claw marks gouged into the wood, vertical lines, deep, as if something had tried to climb in. I pressed my ear to the door, waiting. The vibration returned, faint like a heartbeat behind the boards. I caught a whisper. "I'm here." I swallowed against the terror rising in my throat. I knew what I had to do. I kicked at the door, and it burst inward, sending wood splinters flying. My light found the empty shed, the loose boards gone. In the center of the floor lay a small pile of objects. My flashlight still whole, the stale remains of the rope, and a faded photograph of me, standing proud in uniform, next to Deputy Grant's old cruiser. The photograph was smeared with dirt and something darker, like blood. The edges were singed. I stared, mouth dry. I reached out, trembling, to pick it up. As my fingers touched the paper, the photo burned hot, then disintegrated in my grip, ash drifting to the floor. The thrum under the concrete grew into a roar. The ground shook. I stumbled back, weapon raised. Dust fell from the rafters. The whispered voice rose into a chorus. "Return! Return! Return!" My knees buckled. The world pitched, the room spinning. My flashlight clattered to the floor, beam tilting upward to reveal the ceiling and the shape descending from above. A pale, elongated form, limbs too long, eyes closed but somehow seeing. It drifted down, a face inches from mine, lips parting in a silent scream. My vision tunneled. I tried to call out, but no sound emerged. My weapon slipped from my grasp. The thing's breath was ice on my skin. It opened its eyes, black wells with no depth, and stared into me. Time fractured. I collapsed to my knees as the vibration became unbearable. The voice, 1,000 voices, chanting my name. The last thing I felt was the thing's hand, cold and slimy, wrapping around my wrist. And then, nothing. I woke up in my own bed, my uniform still on, like I'd never left the station. Sunlight filtered through the curtains, pale and weak. My head ached, throat raw. I lay there, trying to piece together how I'd gotten home. My last memory was of that pale face descending in the shed, its hand on my wrist, and then nothing. I staggered to the mirror. My reflection was a stranger, eyes hollowed by exhaustion, skin ashen. My right wrist throbbed, a faint red bruise forming where the creature's fingers had gripped me. I flexed my hand. Every tendon felt tight. The rest of me was covered in dust and dried mud, evidence I couldn't explain away. I slipped out of bed, moved like a sleepwalker. My cruiser was parked in the driveway, idling, radio lights flashing as if alerting me to some unresolved call. I cut the engine. Inside, the dash clock read 2:14 p.m., almost 12 hours after I'd left the shed. I checked my phone, dozens of missed calls and texts from Louis, Marquez, my wife, each message more frantic than the last. I turned the car over, ignoring protocol. I had to know if it was real. I drove back to Henderson's feed, guilt twisting me with every mile. The road was quiet, too quiet. When I arrived, I found the shed still boarded up, the fresh claw marks blurred by fresh rain. The ground around it was churned, as though something massive had dug its way toward freedom. My stomach clenched. I circled to the front door of the feed store. The bright neon open sign hung broken, its glass cracked. I lifted the plywood covering the window and peered inside. Shelves overturned, dust motes dancing in the shafts of light. Nothing else. I put a hand on the door and pushed. It opened with a groan. Inside, the air was stale. I clicked on my flashlight and swept the beam across the floor. At first, nothing. Then I saw them. Footprints in the grain dust, too large for a human, 4 toes astride a narrow heel. They led toward the back room. My heart pounded as I followed them, the beam dancing over overturned sacks, shattered jars of animal feed. The footprints ended at the hatch. I shined downward. No ladder, no rope, just blackness. My jaw clenched. I set the flashlight down and knelt, pressing my palm to the edge. The vibration pulsed beneath my hand. Slower now, but unmistakable, like a living heartbeat. I called out, voice echoing, "I know you're down there." The silence that followed was thicker than the tunnel. Then, slowly, a single, low hum emerged from the darkness. It rose and fell like breathing. I swallowed, chest tight. I climbed down, moving as steadily as I could. Every step brought back the memory of the rope, the crackled blue light, the face at the top of the hatch. I reached the bottom and flicked on my flashlight. The walls were slick with moisture. The tunnel yawned before me, deeper than I remembered. I followed the passage, tracing the faded arrows scratched into the stone. They led me to the chamber, that same cavern where the pool glowed like a bruise. But the water was gone. In its place was a shallow depression filled with broken shards of what looked like stained glass, fragments of blue, pulsing faintly with an inner light. I crouched and picked up a shard. It was cold, thinner than rock, and cut my glove. A drop of blood welled on my fingertip and sizzled where it touched the glass, as though it burned. I yanked my hand back. The shard glowed brighter, then snapped into darkness. The thrum rose around me, faster, louder, until I thought the tunnel would collapse. Something moved at the edge of my light, a shape, hunched, limbs folded like an insect's. It scuttled closer, eyes reflecting the beam, small, red, iridescent. It hissed, a dry rasp that made my blood freeze. I fumbled for my weapon, hand shaking. My bullets were with Lewis. He insisted I turn in my sidearm after I went missing. I cursed under my breath. I'd thought it was safer, but here in the dark, unarmed, I felt naked. The creature crawled into view, mottled gray skin, limbs too long, digits ending in stubs of what must have been claws, now worn blunt. Its head was too large for its body, flattened on top, eyes too wide, mouth a narrow slit. It cocked its head and studied me as though curious. It spoke, voice echoing in my mind rather than my ears. Return. The word twisted in shadows, deeper than language. My skin crawled. My feet found the hatch. I scrambled up, dragging the creature's hiss behind me. I slammed the hatch, scrambling to free the boards that lay across it. My fingers found the planks, pried them free. I shoved and kicked until the hatch rattled in its frame. I burst through into the shed, slamming the door shut, hammering the bolt home. I heard claws scrape the underside of the door, just 3 or 4 tentative taps, before silence swallowed the sound. I dropped to my knees, chest heaving, trembling like a leaf in a gale. I pressed my ear against the wood. Within the boards, I felt a pulse. Slower now, fading, but still present. It beat in time with my own heartbeat. I stood and braced my shoulder against the door. I shouted, voice raw, "You can't have me!" The shack trembled. The windows rattled. Dust fell from the rafters. Then, with one final, mournful sigh, the pulse stopped. The door fell still. I didn't wait. I sprinted for the side door, burst into the night. I ran to my cruiser, threw myself inside, and locked every door. I mashed the starter. The engine roared. My hands were white-knuckled on the wheel. I tore down County Road 14, vision blurred, mind reeling. When I reached the station, I drove straight to the chief's office. I banged on the door. He looked up, startled. His eyes went wide when he saw me, mud-caked, uniform torn, wild-eyed. He rose, voice alarmed. "Harper, what the hell?" I held up the glass shard, still glowing faintly in my hand. "We sealed it up last night thinking it was enough," I gasped. "But it's still alive down there, and it's coming." He paled. He stood, opening his mouth to speak. Then, behind him, something knocked at the window. Soft, deliberate thumps, like someone rapping a knuckle against glass. He spun, gun in hand. I watched as he stared at the glass, mouth open. The lights in the office flickered. The shard pulsed in my hand. I felt the creature's breath on my neck, even in this crowded room. I turned, reached for him. "We have to lock it again, and again, and again." The window shattered inward. Glass sprayed across the desk. He fired, the shot echoing like thunder. I felt heat in my throat as I screamed. Then it was quiet, too quiet. I look at the shattered office, the hole in the window. The chief slumped behind his desk, eyes vacant. The shard in my hand pulses once more, a heartbeat in glass. Outside, I hear hundreds of soft taps against every window in the building, like fingernails drumming a warning. I swing the shard up, desperate, mind racing. These halls are miles from that feed store shed, but the pulse is the same. It is everywhere now, under the floors, behind the walls, in the dark spaces between walls and ceilings. I realize with a cold certainty that sealing one shed will never end this. I rolled down the road in near silence, save for the steady thrum of my cruiser's engine and the faint hiss of tires on cold asphalt. It was 2 a.m., and the county was buried under darkness so complete even the moon seemed reluctant to cast its light. My name's Deputy Jack Ellis, 20 years on patrol in Pine Ridge County, Tennessee. This shift, like so many before it, mattered less for the hours than for what might lurk between them. I killed the headlights when I crested the small rise, letting the cruiser rest in the hush. Even the radio's usual crackle was absent, as though the night itself had muted every wire and speaker. I sat for a moment, fingers tightening around the wheel, before reaching to engage the overhead spotlight. The switch clicked, sending a harsh beam across the gravel shoulders and the tangle of underbrush beyond. No movement, just shadows curled around skinny trunks of young pines, their branches scratching like fingernails across the frame. I leaned forward, scanning the ditch below and the shallow depression where the creek ran shallow but wide enough to drown a man. It was here 2 years ago that Old Man Baxter's pickup had been found halfway submerged, engine still warm but no one inside. Nothing was ever explained. Just another notch in the county's belt of ghost stories. The call had come in 15 minutes earlier. A passing motorist spooked by what looked like a person standing on the roadside, backlit by headlights and unmoving. The driver described it as stiff and almost too still to be alive. I'd told dispatch I'd check it out. My shift, my responsibility. No patrol partner tonight. Just me, the night air, and whatever might be waiting. I killed the spotlight and eased off the road's edge, tires crunching on loose stone as I stepped onto the shoulder. The air was close and smelled of wet earth and pine needles, damp beneath foot from the last week's rain. I unshouldered my flashlight and clicked it on. The cone of light cut through mist, clinging to the grass, illuminating drops that trembled on, blades like misplaced tears. Swallowing, I started down the slope toward where the motorist claimed to have seen something. Halfway down, the beam landed on a figure. Tall, slender, motionless. Its dark outline was so still, I thought at first my light had caught on a post or fallen log. My heart kicked. I swallowed, voice low in my radio mic. "Dispatch, this is Ellis. I need unit on Oak Grove Road. Possible pedestrian in the roadway. Stand by." No answer. Phone lines were dead on this stretch. I was alone. I angled closer. The figure stood maybe 10 feet away, dark pants, jacket pulled tight against a chill. I swept the light across the face. Empty, mask-like features, mouth slightly open, eyes wide and unseeing. Not a person at all, but an old mannequin, torso draped in a tattered flannel shirt, its head cracked where someone had dropped it long ago. I exhaled a laugh of relief and anger, stomped my booted foot and spat. Real funny. Whoever left it here had a sense of humor too dark for me. I hoisted it upright on its base, clicked photos, and radioed dispatch. Prank or not, I'd haul it in at first light. I started back toward the cruiser when my flashlight beam caught something else. A shimmering square of glass half buried in the mud. I knelt and pulled out a dusty cell phone, cracked screen alive with a pale glow. A missed call notification, number withheld. I tapped it. The screen flickered dead. I tucked it into my jacket pocket, sudden unease winding tight in my gut. By the time I climbed back behind the wheel, my palms were slick against leather. I dialed dispatch on the handheld static answering. Unit 3 reporting mannequin on roadside. Found cell phone. Will transport device and evidence back to station. I punched the drive, headlights cutting through fog. The creek ran parallel now, its water barely audible beneath the night's hush. 4 miles down, I'd passed the old Jenkins farm, empty since the family moved after the barn fire. Their place had been the subject of every local horror tale. Strange lights, whispers in the night, and that one time their dog ran away, never to return. I flicked on the dash cam, glanced at the phone in my pocket. No signal, no new calls, just the weight of it pressing against my chest. I cleared the farm in silence, but just beyond its driveway I caught something in the passenger side mirror. A pair of headlights, but no road. I glanced left. Nothing, no gravel trail, no meadow. A stand of trees pressed close to the roadside. My stomach knotted. I checked mirror again. The headlights were gone. I reached down, pulled out the cell phone. The lock screen now displayed a time, 3:47 a.m. I'd only been on this call for 15 minutes. My watch read 2:32. My heart hammered. I shook the phone. Crackling static now spilled from its speaker, forming words I swear I recognized. "Do you see me?" The voice was low, raspy, barely human. I slammed on brakes. The cruiser fishtailed against the gravel. Before I could gather myself, the radio, dead moments ago, flooded with static that morphed into a woman's scream, distant and echoing. The dash cam flickered, then shut off. Instruments blinked and died as my headlights cut out, leaving me in a void darker than any I'd known. I grabbed my torch, threw open the door, and stumbled onto the shoulder. My boots sank into damp grass. I swung the light around. Nothing but swaying pines and swirling mist. The scream echoed again, faint and forlorn, fading with distance. And then, unmistakable, soft footsteps crunching through gravel coming toward me. I froze, every muscle coiled. The footsteps stopped. I circled, searching. Empty road, empty forest. I felt an ache behind my eyes like I'd stared too long at shadows. I reached into my pocket, phone still buzzing. The screen lit up on its own, a text message, 3 words. "Find her body." I dropped to my knees, the rain beginning, fine at first, then heavier. I tried to call backup on my radio, nothing. My heartbeat thrummed in my ears louder than any storm. I scanned the mirror. Headlights appeared again behind me, brighter now, flooding the mist. Not my cruiser. A heavy armored truck, no markings, idling too close, driver's window blacked out. I swallowed against rising panic and clicked my torch off, plunging into darkness. The rain slapped metal. The engine idled. I'd always thought the night belonged to the deputies who kept watch, Until tonight. Tonight, the darkness belonged to something else. Something patient. I lit the torch again. The truck was gone. Only my cruiser, its door ajar, as if I'd abandoned it in haste. The cell phone slipped from my hand, skidding into the mud. On its screen, a final notification glowed faintly. "You're next." I climbed back into the cruiser, door catching on my coat. My breath steamed on the windshield as I fumbled the key. The engine roared to life, and the dash cam blinked back, on, capturing a pair of pale eyes reflected in the rearview mirror. Eyes that disappeared the instant I looked directly for them. I slammed the register, punched the drive toward home station, heart pounding. My radio clicked to life. "Deputy Ellis, status?" I pressed the button, voice raw. Negative on location. Found a cell phone and something else. I'm heading back to the station now." The dispatcher hesitated, then copied that. ETA. My watch chimed 3:47 a.m. In 15 minutes, dispatch had log of mannequin call, radio blackout, truck sightings. My mileage read 18 miles, but I'd only driven 7 since I left the ranch road. I flicked on the spotlight, lit up the ditch beside me. Nothing. The glass shards of phone screen glinted. I whispered to the night, "If she's out there, if anyone needs help." The rain pounded. The beam caught movement in low grass. Skinny legs, a dress soaked in muddy, a hand reaching up. I slammed on brakes, heart lodged in my throat. I yanked open the door, rain lashing. I dropped the torch and hit the ground running, and came to my senses behind the cruiser, torch in hand, alone. Empty road, no footprints, no homeless figure, just the storm and the roar of my own breath. I picked up the torch, light cutting streams through the rain. I backed the cruiser forward, scanning every shadow. At 12 o'clock on the hood, in messy black scrawl on the driver's side windshield, 3 words. "She's waiting." I killed the engine and sat back, rain dripping from my brow. My radio whispered static. My phone lay dead in the mud. The barn, the farmhouse, the phantom truck, they all melted into the night. Only the message remained. "She's waiting." I stayed there until dawn cracked the sky in bruised purple, numb as the chill seeped in. Then I drove back to headquarters, evidence bag in hand, and filed my report. Mannequin prank, stranded phone, disappearance claim, status unknown. But as I type this confession in the dark precinct office, I can't shake the fogged imprint on my windshield. 2 perfect handprints, palm and finger outlines, pressed from the inside against the glass. And beneath them, a faint whisper in the static of my radio. "We're all waiting." The rain let up before I reached the station, but the air stayed thick with it. Damp breath on my neck as I climbed the stairs to my desk. The halls were empty, lights low. The only sound was my boots against the tile. I dropped the evidence bag on my drawer, watching the torn cell phone and cracked mannequin parts glint in the dim fluorescent glow. I'd sworn off coffee on night shifts years ago, but tonight I brewed a pot and poured half a cup before sitting down to write my report. My hand still shook. Dispatch logs, call times, mileage discrepancies. I typed line after line, but each keystroke felt heavier than the last. 2 hours later, the sun had almost broken through the stained windows. Exhaust spilled from my lungs when I leaned back, yawning. I rubbed at my eyes. The report was done. I signed off on it and clipped the evidence in the locker. Mannequin head, cell phone, and the single muddy footprint I'd dusted for prints. I locked it all away. I should have gone home. Instead, I told Chief Marlowe I was headed back out to retrace my path, check for footprints, clues, anything. He raised an eyebrow but nodded. "Just be safe," he said. I gave him a half smile. Nothing felt safe anymore. By the time I returned to Oak Grove Road, dusk was folding into night again. My cruiser sat where I'd left it, doors still ajar. I flicked the interior light on, grabbed my flashlight and radio, and stepped out. The gravel felt loose underfoot. I followed the tire tracks back to where I'd first found the mannequin. No sign of it now, only soggy grass and the faint smell of rubber from my tires. I cleared my throat and radioed dispatch. Dispatch, I'm on site again, conducting second sweep. No one answered. The lines must have jammed again. I moved slowly, scanning the ditch edges and tree line. My light caught a scrap of fabric pinned on a branch. A ribbon, pink with frayed edges. I knelt, pried it loose, and whispered, "Not yours, kid." I bagged it. I kept walking until the fog rolled in, the same white curtain from hours before. My beam vanished moments after hitting it. Gooseflesh crawled up my arms. Then I saw it. Footprints. Bare footprints, small, drifting toward the creek. Strange. Why barefoot in this cold? I followed them until they stopped at the water's edge, as if the person had stepped in, then vanished. I blinked, stared at the water. No ripples, it was glass smooth. I knelt and pressed my palm against the damp earth, no matching prints. I radioed for backup in a low voice, but only static replied. A twig snapped behind me. I spun, heart lodged in my throat. My light bounced over gnarled roots. Nothing. I scanned higher. There, on a low branch, hung more ribbons, each a different color. Pink, yellow, light blue, shredded at the ends. A child's plaything. My stomach turned over. I snapped photos, eyes darting. I heard breathing, slow, deliberate, right behind me. I raised my torch. The beam wobbled. I spun. Darkness. My breath thundered. I turned back to the creek. The water had churned as if something just moved beneath the surface. I clicked on my radio. Ellis to dispatch, someone at the creek. Immediate backup, possible missing person. My voice cracked. The answer, repeat? I tried again, but static swallowed me. I stepped closer to the water. The footprints resumed on the opposite bank, diverging into the trees. I stepped across the creek bed. Wet boots sucked with each step. On the far side, the fog was thicker. The world reduced to 10 feet of visibility. The hair on my neck prickled. I shone the flashlight high. Branches reached down like bony fingers. I whispered to myself, "Come on, Ellis, stick to protocol." I said it loud enough that when a soft sob reached me, I still jumped. The sound came from deeper in the woods. I followed, heart pounding so loud I heard it over the static in my radio. Branches snapped underfoot. The sobbing grew louder, then stopped. Silence, suffocating. The beam landed on a small clearing. An old swing set, rusted, paint peeling. One swing moved slightly even though no breeze stirred. I lifted my radio. Dispatch? Respond. Nothing but static. I panned my light across the swings. On the seat of the far swing lay a doll. Blonde hair, half its head missing, one glass eye staring blankly. Beneath it, footprints pressed around the swing poles. Small, bare, leading away in circles. I shone the light down at the ground. In the mud, another message, scrawled with a stick. Found you. I backed up, heart pounding. My boot hit something solid, a buried camera. I dug it out, mud flinging. I wiped the lens and clicked it on. A single photo displayed me, standing in the clearing. Flashlight raised, face pale as bone. I dropped it, heart in my throat. How? It couldn't have taken a photo seconds after I left my cruiser. But it had. I ran. The trees blurred as I sprinted, branches clawing at my jacket. The sounds of the night grew louder, owls screeching, wind rattling leaves like whispers. I burst back onto the creek bank. splashing across and hauling myself up the opposite side. No footprints on my side, only the ones I'd made. I kept running until I hit the road, collapsing against my cruiser, chest heaving. I grabbed my radio. "Dispatch, get anyone out here, now." Again, static. I stumbled back to the swing set camera, bent to retrieve it, and froze. The doll was gone. Only the bare swing remained, moving slowly as if just vacated. I leapt into the cruiser, doors locking behind me. I jabbed at the radio. "Come in, anyone!" Panicked, I looked down. The camera lay on the passenger seat, lens facing the dashboard. I flipped it open. The playback listed 2 new images. One of me, racing down the creek bed. The second, a close-up of my face, eyes wide in terror, flashlight reflected in puddles. Timestamp, 2:56 a.m., 10 minutes ago. My head spun. I tried the dash cam. It showed nothing but black for the duration, until just now, where a flicker of light caught a figure stepping into view behind my cruiser. I paused. The figure wore a dark hoodie, hunched, face hidden. Then it reached out, hand hovering over the camera lens, and the recording stopped. I pressed the heater, chest heaving, fogging the windshield. I tried the cell phone, dead. I tried the dashboard. Lights returned but flickered like dying pulses. I drove back the way I'd come, headlights slicing through the narrowing road. My mind raced, missing persons, phantom trucks, disappearing mannequins, child's ribbons, the swing set doll. All linked somehow. As I passed the Jenkins farm, I saw someone standing under the porch light. Too still to be alive. I slammed on brakes, swung the spotlight around. The figure was tall, slender, head tilted, watching me. I killed the spotlight and revved the engine. When I looked back, the porch was empty. The light swung, flickered, then died. I drove straight to Chief Marlowe's house. Off duty, but my only option. I pounded on his door, rain plastering my hair. He opened, bleary-eyed. I thrust the camera and ribbons at him. He followed me to my cruiser. We checked every angle, every piece of evidence. Chief nodded slowly. "Ellis, there's something not right." I agreed. "It's like we're inside someone's plan." He exhaled. "Get inside. We'll sort this out in the station." Back at headquarters, dawn's pale light seeped through barred windows. Chief and I laid out photos, ribbons, the doll's glass eye, and the muddy footprints. Files on missing persons sprawled across the table. A runaway child from '98. A hunter last seen near that creek. A teenager reported missing near the Jenkins farm. And an old cold case. A deputy who vanished a decade ago, his description matching none. We stared at the files, names hidden and dates old, then at the map I'd sketched. Call locations, suspect points, footprints, cameras. Chief murmured, "They've done their homework." Every one of these unsolved cases. I nodded. They let us place the dolls and mannequins to pull me out here. Chief's phone buzzed. He glanced, then paled. "It's Central Dispatch." He listened, then looked up. Multiple stations reporting phantom figures on rural roads, abandoned vehicles with no drivers, children's toys arranged in fields, and get this, a hollow voice over the emergency channel repeating, "Find her." I swallowed. "Find her?" He nodded. "We don't know who." We worked through the day, calling in state police, setting roadblocks, checking every farm and barn. Nothing. Every lead ran cold, every witness claim dissolved into nothing, like footsteps in mist. By dusk, the county was a tangle of dead ends and unanswered questions. Later, I sat in my cruiser off Oak Grove Road again, radio dead, phone dead, evidence bag empty, save for the camera. I clicked it on. Playback showed a single new file, a video shot from behind me as I sat there. Light on dash, camera shaking as if filmed by someone running. I played it. My head jerked around, rain dripping on the windshield. The words, "Find her," scrawled on glass behind me. Then another frame. A young girl's face, pale and wet with tears, eyes flickering in torchlight. The final frame was a close-up of her mouth. She mouthed two silent words, "Help me," and the recording ended. My breath caught. I killed the camera and hurled it into the ditch. I closed my eyes, hands tight on the steering wheel. I whispered into the dark, "I'll find you." The branches above rustled once, softly, as if affirming. My radio crackled. A voice, childlike, raspy, whispered, "I'm here." I skidded out of the cruiser, dashed into the underbrush, flashlight and pistol ready. The beam caught a girl's silhouette 20 feet away, standing in the rain. She wore a dress too small, muddy, eyes luminous. I shouted her name, no response. I took 3 steps forward. She turned her head slowly, face blank. Lightning split overhead, illuminating her features. Her eyes were 2 empty sockets, black wells. Her mouth opened in a frozen scream that I heard in my skull long after the thunder died. I fired once, into the air, and the echo shook the trees. She vanished. The night returned, silent and still. I stood in the muddy clearing, soaked, heart pounding. No footprints, no evidence, nothing but the rain. Then a single pink ribbon tumbled down from the tree above, drifting to my boot. I picked it up, wet and fragile. I pocketed it and walked back to my cruiser without looking back. The engine turned over on the first try. I drove back to headquarters in silence. The ribbon lay on the seat beside me, but by the time I reached my desk it had disappeared, no trace. Tonight I watch the roads. I track phantom figures, collect abandoned toys, chase messages on dead phones, and still I haven't found her. She's out there, somewhere in the thick of the dark, waiting. And I'm the one who's been summoned. The question isn't if I'll find her. It's when the night finally claims me instead. The sky was bruising orange by the time I slung my cruiser into the station bay, engine idling in my ear like a countdown. I could feel my nerves stretched thin, every click and hum echoing through my chest. I sat there a long moment, radio dead, phone dead, the ribbon from the clearing resting on the dash like a silent accusation. Finally, I killed the engine and climbed out, slipping my pistol back into its holster. My boots hit the concrete floor with a hollow thud. The station smelled of stale coffee and vinyl seats. I grabbed the ribbon and carried it inside, hands slick. Chief Marlowe looked up from his desk. Exhaustion etched into creases around his eyes. "I've been through every file," I said, voice low. "No missing girl matches her description. Nothing recent, nothing old. It's like she's from nowhere." He rubbed his temples. "Ellis, you've chased shadows for 2 nights. You need rest." I shook my head. "Not until I know who she is. Someone's putting this puzzle together. Widgets on the road, cell phones delivered, dolls arranged. It's purpose-built to lead me here." He stood and took the ribbon, examining it as I did a quick sweep of my holster and flashlight. "Tell me what you know, start to finish." I laid it out. The mannequin, the phone, the phantom headlights, the messages. "Find her body, she's waiting, help me, I'm here." The swing set doll, the bare footprints, the video snapshots on that camera, the faceless girl with hollow eyes who vanished. Chief listened, face stony, nodding at intervals. When I finished, he said, "All right. We'll recheck every missing person report, expand the search grid, get the department, state police, whoever, to canvass the county. We'll find her, or whoever's behind this." I wanted to believe him, but the knot in my chest wouldn't loosen. I left the evidence bag on his desk and climbed the stairs to the interview rooms, determined to press deeper into the cold cases myself. I pulled down boxes labeled decades-old investigations, lost children, unsolved disappearances, and carried them back to my desk. I spread file after file across the surface, cross-referencing dates, locations, and names. Hours passed in a haze of coffee refills and scribbled notes. My eyelids stung. My back protested every hour on that hard chair. Yet as dawn crept through the blinds, an index card from 1978 slipped from between two files. On it, a terse note in faded ink. Suspect spotted at abandoned creek. Victim seen on swing. No body found. No name, no date except that scrawled year. The location matched Oak Grove Creek, the barn path, the swing set clearing. My pulse skipped. I flipped to the original file. A 7-year-old girl named Emily Carter vanished from her aunt's farm, then accused of running off. Residents recalled hearing a child's lullaby humming through the trees, then silence. Her empty swing swung for weeks after. They searched the creek bed but found nothing. The case closed for lack of evidence. I stared at the file, heart hammering. I realized every element I'd seen was driven by echoes of Emily's disappearance. The creek, the swing, the ribbons her mother tied on branches while she searched. Someone was memorializing Emily and tormenting me with it. I grabbed the phone from its locker, dead battery, no signal, but I called anyway. "Chief, I need to reopen the Emily Carter case. It's connected." The line crackled. A distant voice, "Ellis?" That startled me. I hung up and tried again. Silence. I closed the file and, with a sudden resolve, gathered the boxes. I'd drive to the old Carter farm, search the creek banks myself at night, look for clues overlooked 40-plus years ago. But first, I needed rest. I locked the station behind me, the ribbon tucked in my coat pocket, and headed home. My house was dark and quiet, daughter grown and gone, wife long divorced. I flicked on the hall light, boots clacking on the hardwood. I left the ribbon on the kitchen table. It looked so fragile in the harsh glare of the overhead lamp, still damp from the rain. I showered hot water until the noise drowned out my thoughts, toweled off, and slipped into bed. My phone buzzed on the nightstand, the first time in days. I sat up, heart in my throat. I grabbed it, a single message on the cracked screen from an unknown number. "Don't go alone." No signature, no punctuation beyond the period. I threw the phone across the room. It pinged as it hit the carpet. A second message appeared instantly. "He never left." I froze. My eyes darted to the window. Moonlight revealed a figure standing outside on the porch, still silent. I lunged for the pistol on the nightstand, but the figure vanished. In the reflection of the glass, I saw her. Emily Carter, pale and thin, standing behind me, dress muddy, hollow eyes fixed on me. I spun, flashlight from my nightstand illuminating nothing but empty air. Yet behind me, on the wall, scrawled in something dark and dripping, 3 words: "Find me." My gun clicked against the nightstand as I sank against the wall, mind racing. The night had claimed Emily decades ago. She'd been waiting, her memory bound in ritual. But now, she was here in my house. At least the memory of her was. And the person orchestrating it all was telling me their hand, guiding me into territory I didn't understand. All I could do was whisper into the darkness, "I'm coming." But there was no reply, only the steady drip of something wet on the floor, each drop echoing like a countdown. I flicked the vent above my bed. The air turned cold, too cold for spring. Something brushed past my face, a whisper in my ear, "It's your turn." I bolted from the room, flashlight glaring into the hallway. It illuminated wet footprints leading toward the basement door. Little footprints, child-sized. The basement had been empty for years. No one lived there. But now, beneath that door, I could hear a soft lullaby, the same tune Emily's mother hummed as she searched the creek bank all those years ago. My heart thundered as I crept to the door, hand trembling on the knob. The lullaby grew louder. I pressed my ear to the wood, the melody, distorted by pipes and shadows, pulling me down into that dark, damp place where Emily disappeared. I exhaled, swallowed the fear rising in my throat, and turned the knob. The door swung open with a creak that echoed through the silent house. The stairs descended into blackness deeper than any night shift I'd ever worked. I flipped on the flashlight, beam cutting a narrow path down the steps. At the bottom, the light revealed a single swing set, identical to the one in the clearing, suspended from the ceiling by rusted chains. Its seat was wet, muddy, and the doll from the woods sat atop it, one glass eye gleaming. My boots crunched as I stepped forward. The door slammed shut above me. I hit the flashlight on my hat, shaking as I climbed onto the swing seat, the chains groaning under my weight. The doll's eye reflected back my face, pale and horrified. I reached to pick it up when the swing moved, slowly at first, then faster, carrying me deeper into the basement's darkness, the chains rattling in time with that lullaby now deafening in my ears. And in the echo of the melody, I heard a chorus of whispers, Emily's and others long forgotten. Find me. Help me. It's your turn. The chains jerked, uprooting me from dry land, and I tumbled backward into the blackness below. The flashlight spun from my hand, clattering down the stairs into the murky shadows. I landed on cold stone. My breath left me, lungs seizing. I tried to call out, but only silence answered. Above me, the swing stopped. Then footsteps, a small girl's footsteps, paced slowly in a circle around me, each step soaked in water. The lullaby ended, replaced by a single word rasped from the darkness. Now. The basement door banged open. A figure stood in the threshold, no face, only a shape illuminated by light from above. It reached a hand toward me, slim and pale, palms splayed. I scrambled backward, back hitting a damp wall. The figure advanced, each step echoing wetly. My pistol was upstairs, my radio dead, the world outside 6 feet of locked door and concrete. I pressed myself into the wall, body trembling. The figure's hand hovered inches from my face. Its voice, a child's voice, distant and broken, whispered, "Stay." The figure stepped into the beam of the flashlight that now hung on my belt from where it spun. I saw too much. Dozens of small handprints smeared on the walls, damp and fresh. Not the worn ribbons or the doll's eye, but actual impressions of little hands pressed into the stone. The figure stood before me, and then it spoke my name, like the wind rustling in dead leaves. "Jack." My heart stopped. I forced out a rasp. "Who are you?" It cocked its head, silent for a heartbeat. Then blood trickled from where its mouth would be, forming words on the cold floor. "I am her." The flashlight flickered and died entirely. The figure reached out. A cold hand closed around my wrist, and everything went black. I remember the crunch of gravel under my boots before I even saw the headlights fade. I'd been on night patrol for nearly 6 hours, and each mile of Old Mill Road felt emptier than the last. My name's Deputy Cole Harding, Red Pine County Sheriff's Department, and I've driven these backroads more times than I can count. But that night, October 20th, I felt like I was somewhere I'd never been before. The call came in around 1:17 a.m. Dispatch crackled with static. Then Nancy's voice. "Harding, we've got an abandoned SUV east of Twin Bridges. Plates registered to a Mary Jensen. No sign of her at home. Jensen was in her late 60s, lived alone in that weathered clapboard farmhouse off County Line Road." I flicked on my overhead lights and steered toward the low beam of the headlamp in my cruiser. When I rolled up, the house sat silent under a single flickering bulb by the door. The SUV was parked on the grass, its dome light still aglow, casting me in that harsh yellow haze. I cut the engine, and the sudden drop in noise made my ears ring. Wind rustled through bare cottonwood branches. Somewhere, off to my left, an old scarecrow lost an arm. Its ragged sleeve whipped in the breeze like a dying thing. I eased down the driveway, hand hovering near my holster. The dome light illuminated muddy footprints leading away from the vehicle toward the orchard behind the barn. Gravel crunched again. This time I was certain I wasn't alone. I swept my flashlight across the orchard's edge. Fog lay heavy on the ground, swirling around low branches like smoke. My breath puffed in short bursts. "Dispatch, Harding," I said into my radio. "I'm at Jensen's. No sign of Mrs. Jensen or anyone else. Footprints lead into the orchard. I'm following." Static. I pressed the mic harder. "Copy?" Harding to dispatch. Only the static hissed back. I glanced at the SUV. The keys were still in the ignition. Dome light burned bright. No sign of a struggle inside. Just Jensen's purse on the passenger seat, zipper open, its contents undisturbed. I pocketed her driver's license and stepped off the gravel path toward the rows of apple trees. The orchard lay in disarray, rotten fruit scattered like dark jewels, fallen limbs cracking underfoot. My flashlight beam danced across gnarly trunks, then caught movement. A flash of white behind a tree. I jerked the light toward it. Nothing. Just a white plastic bucket, its handle broken, lying on its side. I called out, voice low. "Mrs. Jensen? Sheriff's office? Miss Jensen?" My words vanished into the damp night air. No answer. I crouched to inspect the ground. Footprints, small, barefoot. Anxiety tightened my chest. Mrs. Jensen hated going barefoot, especially in October. These prints were likely hers, but then the tread changed, deeper, wider, clawed at the mud. I froze, heart kicking against my ribs. My hand slipped to my flashlight, then drifted toward my pistol. A distant owl hooted. The sound felt closer than it ought to, echoing off the barn. I swept the beam toward the old structure. Moonlight slanted through broken boards, making the inside look like a cavern of shadows. I took a slow step forward. My radio buzzed suddenly, startling me so badly I nearly dropped it. Nancy's voice, urgent. "Harding, you there? Radar patrol just reported 2 vehicles west of you. Headlights off, idling on Spring Creek Road. And you said a barefoot person?" "Affirmative. Possibly elderly female. But prints shift to larger, deeper ones. I'm securing the scene now." I exhaled, steeling myself, and moved toward the barn. I slipped inside, flashlight tracing the clutter. Broken barrels, rusted farm tools scattered like forgotten relics. My boot scuffed something soft. I glanced down. A scrap of floral fabric, likely from Jensen's nightgown. Blood, thin, drying, spotted the ground. My pulse raced. I crouched, stomach knotting, and snapped photos with my phone. Protocol, evidence. But my hands shook so hard the light bounced off every beam. A metallic click behind me. I spun, pistol drawn, light cutting a narrow path. No one. Just a saw blade hung on the wall, its teeth glinting where the beam hit. I swallowed and backed toward the door. My radio crackled. "Harding, you copy?" Static again, then Nancy's calm voice. Devil's Creek fire chief is en route, but they'll take at least 10 minutes to get through that terrain. I acknowledged, clipped my radio, and stepped back into the orchard. Every step stretched the tension. I followed the prints to a small clearing where a collapsed chicken coop lay. The odor of damp straw and something fouler hit me, rotting flesh. I shone my light around. No animal carcass, no body. Just a large burlap sack, tied at the top. Its shape shifting as if something inside tried to move. My breath caught. I inched forward, kicked at the sack with my toe. It shifted again, letting out a low groan. I jerked back, heart hammering. "Hey!" I yelled, half to scare, half to see a reaction. The sack stilled. Silence settled so thick I could hear my jaw crack. I pressed the barrel to the burlap knot and cut it free. The top collapsed inward. Nothing but old straw and a broken lantern, its glass smashed, wick charred. My flashlight beam traced the edges. Footprints circled away. My mind raced. Someone staged this. They left blood at the barn, a tossed sack, but no victim. A warning? A trap? I felt watching eyes. Gooseflesh pricked across my arms. I swept the orchard tree line again and caught movement in the fog. Something crouched behind a trunk, silhouette too tall and stiff for a person. "Freeze!" I shouted, stepping forward. The shape darted away. I chased after, boots sinking in wet leaves. The chase drove me to the orchard's far end, and then abruptly the ground gave way to open field. The fog thinned, revealing the lean silhouette of a pickup parked under two ancient sycamores. Headlights weren't on, but my approach triggered its alarm. The horn blatted twice before cutting out. I scanned the cab, door ajar. I flipped on my flashlight. Blood spatter on the steering wheel, door frame, bright against the gray metal. I swallowed bile. Keys were in the ignition again. Someone wanted me to find this, to know they'd been here. My radio buzzed again. Backups 5 minutes out. 5 minutes could be too long. I climbed in and flicked on the dome light. It revealed a placard taped to the visor. A crudely drawn symbol. 3 arrows encircling a star. I'd never seen anything like it. My breath hitched. My instincts screamed to leave and wait for support, but I had to see if anyone was inside. I reached for the passenger door. It stuck, but finally gave with a wrench. Empty. No bag, no jacket, no sign of a body, just a steel toolbox on the floor, lid closed. I hesitated, then pried it open with my belt knife. Inside, folders labeled "Confidential" lay stacked, but the top one had a name scrawled in red, Mary Jensen. My pulse pounded. I flipped through, notes about a water well contaminated by something dumped upstream, letters from county officials ignoring her tests, threats to shut her down if she kept complaining. She had records proving illegal dumping for years. I felt a cold squeeze in my chest. She'd been silenced. Footsteps in the field. Lights bobbed at the tree line. Back up. I replaced the toolbox lid and stepped out. As I turned, headlights cut on from behind me. I raised my flashlight, aimed my pistol. 2 figures stepped forward, rifles slung. One wore a sheriff's vest, wrong county name patched over with cloth. The other was taller, face hidden by shadow. The taller spoke. "Deputy Harding, looks like you found our little operation." I stood my ground. "Put your hands where I can see them." The tall man laughed, low and hollow. "You've been poking your nose where it doesn't belong. We protect our own around here." I trained my pistol on the man in the vest. "I'm protecting a citizen. Now step aside." He shook his head. "We can't let you do that." The tall man chest thumped a fist. My stomach dropped. In that instant, I knew this wasn't about a missing woman. It was about keeping the conspiracy buried. I cleared my throat, finger on the trigger. We can do this the easy way or the hard way." He smiled. "Hard way, then." He raised his rifle. A shot rang out. Blood spattered the grass. I felt the world tilt as I dove for cover. I hit the ground hard, the impact jarring every bone in my right shoulder. The air exploded with sound. Sharp report of the rifle, echoing off the trees, metal grinding against flesh. I rolled onto my back, vision shaking, and saw the tall man's rifle lower slowly, smoke curling from the barrel. The moon glinted off cold steel as he stood at the orchard's edge, illuminated by my cruiser's emergency lights, his silhouette both immense and oddly still. My pistol clattered across damp grass a few feet away. Pain flared up my arm, but adrenaline blanketed the ache. I pushed myself into a crouch, fingertips brushing slick blades of wet grass. Through my right ear the world hummed. In my left, a faint ringing that threatened to drown out everything else. I swallowed, forced air into my lungs, and struggled to focus my racing heartbeat into a steady rhythm. Two of the conspirators, one in that patched sheriff's vest, the other cloaked in shadows, stepped forward, boots crunching on the field. My other hand slipped beneath my jacket to where my radio sat. I fumbled for it. They paused 50 yards away. The tall one whispered something to the man in the vest. I couldn't make out the words, but the shorter one's shoulders shook in a half-laugh, half-sneer. I risked lifting my head, angle enough to see them, but still low to the ground. The tall man raised his free hand, gesturing for me to stay where I was. I pressed the talk button. Dispatch, Harding down, shots fired, suspects armed. Request immediate medevac. My voice cracked, static. No response. I cursed under my breath. I tried again. "Nancy, answer me." Nothing but that ringing. My legs burned. I was bleeding. I knew that. Sweat and cold dampness. The night air tasted of iron and wet earth. The tall man spoke across the field. "Deputy Harding, we can end this. Drop your weapon." He glanced at the man in vest, who nodded once. They stepped forward in tandem. I weighed my options. There was a slope behind me leading down toward Devil's Creek. If I tried to crawl, get some cover, maybe backup could intercept them on the road. But my cruiser's light shone right to where I lay. There was no stealth. And dragging a wounded shoulder through thorny underbrush sounded like a death sentence. Instead, I gathered what strength I had, positioned myself halfway up onto one elbow. My voice was low, but I forced it out. "She's alive. Mary Jensen. She's still out there. If you want to disappear, walk away now." I tapped my chest for emphasis, hoping to bluff that I was more stable than I felt. My chest heaved, every breath a stab of pain through ribs already bruised from wrestling the burlap sack earlier. The tall man tilted his head. "She's long gone. Made the mistake of poking her nose in things that don't concern her. If you knew what was best, you'd stay down." He jerked his rifle upward. I knew that stance would send a bullet through me if I tried any sudden move. Yet I had to keep them from escaping with evidence. I spotted a broken branch a few feet away. Wood splintered jaggedly, its tip pointed like a spear. I dragged my right hand across the grass, fingertips grazing the broken wood. Pain shot through my arm, but I clamped my fingers around the thicker end and clutched it to my chest. If they came closer, I could push myself up, lean the spear out and make them think twice about advancing. The man in the vest hefted his rifle, cocked it. He took a measured step forward. "One more inch, Harding," he said, voice low and controlled. "And we decide right here." Suddenly, headlights swung into the field from the north. Devil's Creek Fire Rescue and another sheriff's cruiser. The engines roared, beams cutting wide arcs through the fog. The conspirators froze. rifles leveled instinctively toward the new arrival. The fire chief's vehicle braked 2 car lengths off, door flung open. Chief Ramirez emerged, flashlight in one hand, radio in the other. "Harding, are you hit?" he yelled, voice tight. "Shoulder," I managed, choking on blood in my throat. I raised my hand, spear still clutched against my ribs. Ramirez's light found me, saw the blood blooming on my uniform. "Get down! Everyone freeze!" he ordered. Behind him, 2 more deputies spilled out, weapons drawn. The conspirators straightened, rifles raising. The man in vest cursed under his breath, eyes darting between me and arriving backup. Ramirez barked into his mic. "Dispatch, be advised we have suspects armed and firing. Request state patrol." The radio crackled. Faint acknowledgement came through. But in that moment of chaos, the tall conspirator acted. He threw his rifle at Ramirez. It clattered against the chief's boot. Ramirez stumbled but recovered, flashlight swinging wide. The rifle skittered across the grass. The man lunged forward. My spear hand shot out before I could think. A reflex born of desperation. The jagged wood caught him in the side, chest, and he yelped, stumbling back into the field. Blood spurted bright red against his dark coat. He collapsed at my feet, the spear across his ribs. The man in the vest pivoted, raised his gun at Ramirez. Then Deputy Atkins, new to field work, stepped out of the cruiser, pistol drawn, and fired twice. The man in the vest went rigid, crumpling to the ground. Sirens wailed in the distance. The field erupted in shouts and turmoil. Deputies running forward, cuffs clicking, fire crew tending to my wound. Chief Ramirez leaned over me, pressing gauze above my shoulder. "Cole, stay with me," he said, eyes burning with intensity. "We've got them. We've got your suspects." I closed my eyes, dizziness pulling at me. I felt cold hands lifting my arm, felt the warmth of Ramirez's presence. He called for a medic tarp. One of the fire techs slung me onto it. I watched overhead lights swirl, my vision blurred. I woke 3 hours later in the county hospital, sterile white ceiling above me. My shoulder throbbed. Tubes taped along my arm reported my vitals. The door opened. Chief Ramirez stood there, shoulders slumped, suitcase in hand. He offered a tight nod. "They arrested both," he said quietly. "We found Jensen tied up in a shallow pit north of Spring Creek Road. She's alive, unconscious but stable. They moved in quickly after you shot the tall one." That symbol. Turns out it's the mark of New Hope Collective, a militia group under cover here. I tried to sit up. Dizziness stalled me. Ramirez pushed the IV bag, and I sagged back. No further shots fired. They had files on dozens of citizens, farmers, environmental advocates, anyone who protested upstream water usage. They'd been working for months, fabricating accidents to grab land cheap. I exhaled, relief and exhaustion mingling. "And the man in vest?" Ramirez shook his head. He gave a false name, but registry checks show he's ex-sheriff of Benton County, dismissed 8 years ago for corruption. He's the one patching over his vest. They recruited him to run intimidation operations. I closed my eyes. Why me? Why set me up like that? Ramirez's expression hardened. They wanted to distract you. If you were out in the ditch, they could attack Jensen without interference. They covered their tracks, staged the barn scene, stole your radio signal. They even recorded that static call, had a small transmitter in the barn to jam your unit and send false chatter. He paused. They knew your routines, Harding. They scoped you out, smart and patient. You just happened to scare them when you found the files. My thoughts drifted back to the orchard, to the hollow-sounding groan of the burlap sack, to the symbol taped inside the pickup. and the pickup truck alarm stopped exactly when I drew my pistol. Ramirez exhaled. They had access to your cruiser, installed a remote kill switch for your radio, and a temp sensor in the cab to trigger the horn. They wanted you focused on the truck, stranded, so they could finish Jensen's abduction quietly. I closed my eyes again. Everything felt unreal, like a nightmare someone was rewriting every detail of. But Jensen was alive, and the militia operatives were cuffed in adjacent cells. I let myself believe it was over. Maybe this was how some cases ended. Ramirez dropped his voice. There's more, Cole. We found encrypted drives in their vehicles. Evidence points to other counties, other operations. This goes bigger than Red Pine. Federal task force is taking over tomorrow. My head throbbed. I tried to steady my breathing. So, more of them out there. He nodded. And they've gone dark already. They know you're onto them. They'll scatter and regroup. I clenched my fists around the hospital sheet. What about me? Ramirez's eyes softened. You're going home in 2 days. But Harding, I need you to stay alert. They won't stop. He turned to leave and paused. One more thing. He reached back, pulled out a small black thumb drive from his pocket, held it out. Found this taped under your cruiser's dash.